Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto reincarnated as Harry Potter. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by 88 miles per hour and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Naruto was sulking and more than a little disappointed as he lay under the hot summer sun. He had failed the academy graduation exam a second time. He'd come to one of his favorite spots to daydream about becoming an awesome ninja and going on adventures. He was lying on an awning of a house near the walls of the village, which let him see over the wall into the surrounding lands. He knew he wasn't allowed to leave the village and go exploring without a chaperone. Unfortunately, having no family or caretaker, that meant he could only leave when he was an adult himself or a ninja on a mission from the Hokage. A scowl colored his face, tensing the whisker-like marks on his cheeks. He smashed a soft fist into the slats of the awning. "Why won't they pass me?" he shouted to the world. He sighed and sat up to stare out at the forest and the winding paths that led to the village gates. Fairly soon his favorite pastime gripped him and visions of glory, war, and awesomeness filled his mind. Naruto was enjoying a particularly contrived daydream where the old Hokage was putting the hat of office of the cage on his head when a commotion jerked him out of the illusion. Outside of the village walls he saw shapes flickering in the trees and identified them a moment later as the elite shinobi, Anbu, pursuing another ninja. The chase brought the fleeing ninja into trees directly across from him. Naruto watched excitedly as the mask-wearing Anbu closed on the position, but his excitement turned to horror when the fleeing ninja vaulted over the wall and landed on his awning. Naruto backpedaled on his hands and knees, but the shinobi grabbed him by the scruff of his neck and placed a kunai against his throat. "I'll kill the kid." Step-ba, the escaping ninja, didn't get to finish his threat as an ninjato pierced the side of his neck and skewered him. The cat mask-wearing Anbu slid her sword out and Naruto, who had fallen on his behind released from the ninja's grasp, was showered in blood. Naruto watched the blood spurt out from the hole in the man's neck in horrified fascination. The ninja's body fell to its knees and then slumped sideways. The small awning was surrounded by other members of Anbu, but Naruto hardly noticed. "Ghost," he stammered. On the awning besides him and the cat mask Anbu was the transparent form of the man who had just been killed staring down at his own body. The transparent man looked at him, his eyes the only thing visible on his masked face widened. "Master of Death. Spare me," he screamed, bowing suddenly on his hands and knees. Before Naruto could respond, the man's form began to disappear and he started howling at him to save him. "Uzumaki-kun," the cat-masked woman called Naruto, seeing his pale face. The blonde boy was staring at something in fright and had seemingly forgotten to breathe. "It's alright, the man will not hurt you," she said, placing a hand on the small boy's shoulder. The contact jolted Naruto out of his stupor and he nodded absently. "Who was he? Would he try to kill me?" "An enemy of the village. He threatened you to stop us from capturing him." "The fool didn't know that he signed his death warrant when he put you in danger," the cat-masked woman answered. "The torture and interrogation department will not be happy, Cat-san, they wanted him alive," a horse mask Anbu said as he gathered the body up with another comrade. The cat mask Anbu did not deign to reply, choosing instead to pick up the boy bodily and leap away from the awning. She was surprised that the boy did not make a fuss but simply clutched to the front of her white cloak. She jumped roof from roof, deciding to take the boy home where he might get over his shock. She set him on his feet when they reached his apartment building but held onto his hand to guide him up to his rooms. "Kitty-chan," he said softly. The ninja ignored the nickname, hearing the hesitance in the usually boisterous child's voice. "Yes," she encouraged, entering his unlocked apartment. Are ghosts real?" he asked, picking at his blood-covered orange jacket. The elite ninja frowned behind her mask. She walked to his kitchen to wet a towel, delaying for time to think. The child remained standing in the entrance of his apartment, too shocked to take any action on his own. She sighed mentally and kneeled in front of him to wipe off the blood on his face with a towel. "No, Uzumaki-kun, ghosts aren't real. You are training to be a ninja, right? You should be brave because a shinobi's life is filled with death. You should not fear it. That is simply how things are." She helped him out of his jacket and motioned him to enter his own apartment and sit on the small couch. He seemed to be thinking hard on something and was not perturbed outwardly by the blood that still remained on him. The red of it stood out starkly on his bright blonde hair. "I saw something," he trailed off as if he wanted to say more but thought better of it. Naruto, the cat-masked woman forcibly shook the boy. He blinked at her as if he was just waking up and seeing her for the first time. "You should take a shower and get this blood off. I will take care of your clothes." She coaxed him toward the bathroom. When she could hear the water running, she took the soiled clothes and started a wash. Then she went to the boy's closet where a handful of copies of his daily wear hung and grabbed a clean set. She smiled in amusement at the orange jacket and pants costume which the Anbu had stocked the closet with when Uzumaki Naruto had moved into this apartment his first time. Keeping a watch on the hyperactive tyke was made far easier by his bright wardrobe. With a wry smile she thought that after all it really hadn't been necessary to make Naruto easier to find. He was loud, brash, and making trouble every second he could. Following the trail of pranks was simple enough. Her smile turned sour, however, when she thought back to why she was in the apartment. By terrible chance the ninja they were after had stumbled upon Naruto, and if it hadn't been for his clothes, she wouldn't have known from afar which child the man had taken hostage. As it was, the mere sight of the color had given her enough information to know she had no choice but to escalate the capture mission to an assassination mission. The Hokage would have little mercy for any Anbu who failed to protect Uzumaki. That is besides the danger of what was sealed inside the child escaping as he died. A shudder went through her at the thought of the nine-tailed demon fox rampaging. Though lost in her thoughts she sensed a presence and her hand went to her sword. She watched the entrance and the window of the apartment warily before an Anbu landed on the terrace outside the window and she relaxed her stance in recognition. The other Anbu entered with a bag of food. It looked like he was in shock. Hard to believe anything could make the brat speechless. Thought I'd get his favorite food for him. A full stomach always makes me feel better and the boy loves his ramen, the man said, placing the bag on the low table. The cat-masked woman nodded slowly. Good idea. Anyone see Uzumaki at the scene? The man shrugged. Too soon to tell. We weren't exactly being stealthy. I didn't notice any villagers at the site. Lucky the kid likes to hang out in out-of-the-way places. No one was home at the time, but we'll have to explain to the owner why there's blood on his awning. His head snapped to the bathroom. Sounds like he's done. I'm out. Just feed him and put him to bed. Do I look like his mother? The woman demanded, annoyed at the casual order. The man laughed. Put the claws away, Kitty-chan. He jumped away before she could retort. She had a feeling that the nickname Naruto had just given her was going to become widespread. Unlike Naruto, however, she could hurt her teammates for their disrespect. Ramen. The boy exclaimed, apparently catching a whiff of the food. The light in his eyes which had dimmed came dazzling back. He sat himself down in front of the bowl only in his towel and dug in. The woman smiled in half exasperation half amusement behind her mask. Naruto, go straight to bed after eating. He nodded absently, being too busy slurping down the food. The woman shrugged and slipped out of the window to jump off the terrace. She had to report what had happened after all. Kitty-chan. Naruto yelled for her. She looked over her shoulder and cocked her head to the side to signal she was listening. Thanks for saving my life. I'm going to be an ass-kicking ninja just like you, see I already have whiskers like you. He pointed happily to the whisker-like marks on his cheeks and grinned cheekily at her. Ah, she said seriously. So you've discovered the secret to my powers. With the magic of those whiskers you will be Hokage in no time. He thrust his chest out in pride and shouted, believe it. With a quiet chuckle the woman sent chakra to her legs and in a powerful leap bounded away. Scene break. Although the cat-masked Anbu's ministrations and the food had gone a long way to settle Naruto, he couldn't shake the weird feeling that had settled over him. He felt disconnected, as if his body was someone else's. The words Master of Death rang in his head, pulling at some forgotten memory. It made him feel strange and oddly sad. He thought about the ghost and wondered why he'd seen it if no ghosts existed. With these thoughts he no longer remembered that he had failed the graduation test that day and that his dreams had been put on hold for another whole year. Feeling strange till he fell asleep and dreamt of people and powers he had never seen or heard of before. Scene break. Naruto had been tossing and turning, feeling the tumultuous emotions of the boy in his dreams. A dark-haired boy was holding out a stick shooting red light at a man with snake-like face, amid ruins. The red light pushed back the green light streaming out the snake man's stick. The red light finally connected with him, tearing the stick in his hand and throwing it back at the boy. The boy reached with his other hand and caught the snake man's stick. The triumphant smile graced his tense features before his expression changed to horror. The snake man exploded, destroying everything around him including the boy. Naruto woke up with a start and sat up in his futon, breathing heavily. He was drenched in sweat. The weird disconnected feeling from the last day came over him and didn't leave him. Vertigo hit and he leaned over to throw up on the floor of his bedroom. Another disconcerting sensation gripped him like something was crawling beneath his skin and he jerked back, slamming himself against the wall on accident. He blacked out from the impact. When the boy woke next he gasped in surprise at his surroundings. The last thing he remembered he had been dueling Lord Voldemort in Hogwarts. He thought furiously, trying to remember everything, despite how dizzy he felt. He had killed the Dark Lord, he was sure of it. He had disarmed him, and as soon as he'd caught the Elder Wand, Voldemort exploded, the heat, the force waves, and his own skin peeling at the magic unleashed, burning. Yes, he remembered burning and dying. Yes, he had died. Harry was sure he must have died. He had been too near Voldemort. A rank smell of vomit assaulted his nose and pulled him away from his thoughts. He looked around the room, for a short time not recognizing it, until a stream of memories broke into his mind and he screamed in sheer agony. And, once again, the boy lost consciousness. Scene break. It was a day and night later that he woke up with nearly a decade of memories of a boy named Uzumaki Naruto and a village hidden in the leaves. Harry Potter sat up in a panic. He stumbled out of the futon and dragged himself to the restroom he remembered from Naruto's memories. Relieving himself and washing his mouth of the taste of vomit, he stared at the reflection looking back at him. A tanned face with the brightest yellow blonde hair he had ever seen and suspicious blue eyes looked back at him. He worked his jaw. Making faces at himself in the mirror to prove to himself he really was some blonde-haired, blue-eyed little kid. It didn't feel different than being under the effects of a polyjuice potion. There was no trouble or knowing where his extremities were. "Hello?" he said to himself, testing if his voice had also changed. "My name is Harry." He frowned at the mirror, recognizing the voice of the child from his memories. Something is very, very wrong here. What the bloody hell is going on? Shaking his head as if it would dispel the situation, Harry took off the smelly clothes and stepped under the shower. Everything was so small, he noted in mild curiosity. He really was in a titchy little body. As he washed himself, something grabbed his attention under the soap suds on his hands. He washed away the soap to stare in shock at the palms of his hands. In very faint but defined way there were lines on his palms making a triangle with a circle and a line inside it. It looked like the symbol of the Deathly Hallows was simply a natural birthmark. "Curious, very curious," Harry mumbled to himself. He dried himself quickly so he could explore the hallow marks more. The shower had gone a long way to clear the cobwebs in his head and he was able to keep the oppressive pressure of memories he had no recollection of at bay. Clothes had been laid out already on the arm of a small couch in the living room. He dressed himself in the unfamiliar yet familiar gear of black t-shirt and boxers under a pair of orange pants of very durable material. He left the orange-colored jacket of the same material off, imagining it would be really hot. His stomach complained of hunger, but he ignored it in favor of tracing the mark on one of his palms. "Damn it, wish Professor Dumbledore were here to explain what is going on." The words were just out of his mouth when a figure appeared in the living room. With his mouth open, Harry stared at Albus Dumbledore in his full professorial glory, looking at the room and him in open suspicion. "Who are you, young man, and how is it that you have the power of the Master of Death?" Professor Dumbledore demanded. Harry continued to gawk at the semi-transparent form of the man for a long moment. "Professor, it's me. It's Harry." He shot to his feet, beside himself in joy that he had somehow the power of the resurrection stone to call the dead. Professor Dumbledore speared him with an unamused look over his half-moon glasses. "Young man, do not play games with me, you look nothing like." He paused for a moment, as if a thought had struck him. "Harry, if it is really you, where did we meet the last time?" Harry smiled in relief. "I think it was inside my mind, sir. We were in a sort of version of King's Cross. You told me about my choices to either move on or go back. I went back." The old wizard's expression went through quick changes that Harry couldn't quite follow. He watched him raise a ghostly wand and tap his spectacles. A shimmer of light passed over the lenses as the man studied him through them. "Dear Merlin, it is you." He finally gasped out and a huge smile broke over his face. "My boy, where have you been? Why didn't you contact us sooner? We have been searching for you for near a decade. Your soul disappeared after your last duel with Voldemort." "It did?" Harry blurted. "I don't know what happened, Professor. The last thing I remember is Voldemort blowing up and burning, and then I think I died." "You most certainly did," Dumbledore said, more to himself than Harry. "We should have thought of this possibility. I should have known this could happen." "What? What happened?" "I have no idea what's going on," Harry implored. Dumbledore sighed and ran his hand through his beard as he was wont to do in life as well. "Harry, you were reincarnated. And if my guess is correct, you were reincarnated as soon as you died, sent into this realm of existence. It is not without precedence, but usually there is a reason for a soul to be reborn. So I'm not just possessing this boy's body, Harry snorted in disbelief. "I'm him. Or he's me, I mean, you know." Yes, Dumbledore nodded. "You were simply born again, this time as this boy. But what is truly fascinating is that as soon as I was called, I instinctively knew I was being summoned by the Master of Death. How extraordinary. I always thought that title was just that, a title, but it seems there is true authority in that mantle." Harry frowned, not liking this revelation particularly. "What do you mean, Professor? What does it mean for me? And shouldn't I have gotten to choose if I wanted to be resurrected? I mean, if I died I'd much rather be with my family for the first time in my life, or death, or whatever it is." "Life after death," Professor Dumbledore corrected gently. "I understand this is frustrating, Harry, but we are all subject to the cosmic powers of existence. I do not know why this happened, but I suspect it is because all the Hallows accepted you as their master. I am beginning to fear that you may have been granted power beyond the ken of men. Professor. Harry rolled his eyes, beseeching him to be clearer simply with his aggravated body language. Dumbledore shook his head. I don't know, Harry. It is just the beginning of a suspicion. If you truly are master of death in some sense, then your power would be that much greater beyond the veil as it were. Perhaps, by throwing you in a cycle of rebirth, you are being kept from exercising the scope of your authority. Harry blinked slowly as anger filled him. You're saying someone is responsible for this? That this is just a power play? Harry, Dumbledore began in a calming tone. I do not know anything for certain. I would not have even shared my suspicions with you, except that apparently I cannot refuse a command from you, be it implied or overt. You have to do as I say? Harry asked in confusion. That's strange. Indeed, but now you can see why your power might be a threat to the order beyond the veil. The old wizard suddenly laughed. Never a dull moment around you, my boy. Now if I may suggest something, summon your mother and father. They have been distraught and haven't been able to live without knowing what has happened to you. Give me some time to seek them out to explain what has happened. It is probably best we keep your reawakening under wraps as much as possible. Harry nodded slowly in consideration. In case there really is someone out to get me on your side of the veil, then they would be watching my loved ones. Dumbledore had an expression of pride on his face. Yes, exactly. Now, tell me, how have you been? Harry slumped back on the couch and Dumbledore conjured a ghostly chair for himself. I don't know exactly, Harry began. I haven't been aware of my previous life, really, until I think a few days ago. I saw a man killed in front of me, his ghost appeared to me and called me Master of Death. That triggered something inside my new self, I guess that's what I'd call him. He had nightmares and… Who had nightmares? Professor Dumbledore asked, his eyes shining with interest. Ah, my new self, his name is Uzumaki Naruto, weird name. Here I suppose he's me, so I had nightmares from my final battle with Voldemort. And that seems to have reawakened me. Yes, I suppose that makes sense, Dumbledore mused, looking heavenward in thought. That was the moment you reclaimed the wand, the last of the Hallows. It is a significant moment of your life. I must say it is strange to see you in the form of a blonde, blue-eyed child. Harry laughed softly. That's not even the half of it, this kid, he's really odd. I'm still looking at all his memories. It's almost driven me crazy. It feels as if it is someone else's mind, yet it feels familiar. I think I haven't done anything he has, but I can almost taste everything he's eaten, everything he has touched, every moment of happiness and lots of moments of loneliness. I don't think he's a very happy kid, Professor. Dumbledore frowned and asked, family? Harry rolled his eyes up, dredging up memories. He's alone. Orphan. At least that's what he's been told. Doesn't know who his parents were or are. Dumbledore smiled sadly. I would have wished you had known a mother and a father if you had to be reborn. Harry waved the concern away. I think that would make the situation even more difficult to handle. Yes, perhaps. You think of only Lily and James as your parents. It would be bizarre to say the least to have another set. I sense a little suspicion in you about the truth of what he knows about the status of his parents. Dumbledore left the statement, simply implying the question. I don't know, there are oddities about his life. Here I should say I have been living on my own from a very young age, but I also have these elite soldiers watching out for me. Before my awakening I didn't think much of them, I didn't think their presence had anything to do with me. I thought they were simply there, guarding this village. But there are far too many small clues that don't add up. They know me, even though they don't meet with me directly. Why would they know a random orphan living by himself? Harry shrugged in confusion. To my knowledge, Harry, resurrected souls are placed in a new realm because of their particular strength. After moving beyond the veil, some of these intricacies have been revealed to me as I have taken an interest. Perhaps there is something to this Uzumaki that hasn't been revealed to him, or perhaps he simply did not have your eyes to see the clues. Dumbledore smiled. It seems, Harry, that your life will always been an adventure. No kidding, Professor. You love this part. My new self is learning to be a ninja. This village is a ninja village. And I call their head, the supposed most powerful ninja in this nation, grandfather or old man. Harry laughed at the ridiculousness. Dumbledore did not share in the humor. Assassins. He frowned. What in Merlin's name are you doing here? Is this head assassin truly your grandfather? Harry shook his head. I don't get that feeling. I'd be living with him otherwise, I expect. He's the only one who has been kind to me is what I can tell you from the memories I've been able to absorb. This boy, Uzumaki, is not very well liked. Why? I don't know. This is quite disturbing. I don't see you as an assassin. You have killed when necessary or by accident, but this is not you. Dumbledore frowned. Harry shrugged. I don't know, Professor, they aren't like ninjas I've ever known about. Of course, I only know about ninja from sneaking Dudley's video games and playing Mortal Kombat. Well, video games can hardly be an accurate source of information, but I cannot say mine are any better. How are they different? Dumbledore leaned forward in his ghostly chair. Harry sighed and rubbed his temples. Trying to process these memories and judgments Uzumaki made. It's very hard to think. Sorry, Professor, give me some time. Dumbledore nodded and lost himself in thought for a moment. I am concerned about your observations, Harry. If you truly are under guard and the head of these ninja is also someone who is looking out for you while leaving you to raise yourself, then I have to agree there may be something about young Uzumaki that you do not know. Harry nodded. Sort of like my first life, eh, Professor? Dumbledore chuckled. Indeed. But with us both having learned from that experience, I think your first order of business is to gather intelligence. You cannot rely on the memories and impressions of a child. You must bring your own experience to bear on this. Also, as we know now, a summoned soul is in all senses your servant. Take advantage of that. A source of knowledge who cannot betray the secret that you are a reborn soul would be priceless. Harry breathed in relief. Thank you, Professor. I was feeling very lost. Now I can do something about it. Who do you think I should summon? Dumbledore gave a very uncharacteristic shrug. I am afraid I have no knowledge of this realm of existence, Harry. I say go out, look at history books, find out the names of both important people and those whose names you can simply find in the local cemetery. If you speak to both those who were in high places and those in low places in life, you will be able to form a better picture of where you are. That makes sense. Harry grinned. And what do I do about this ninja business? Dumbledore raised a brow and smiled. Use the lessons you learned playing Dudley's video games, I suppose. Harry laughed. Guess I can't expect you to figure out everything. Speaking of figuring things out, Dumbledore motioned to Harry's hands. I see the mark of the Hallows. I suggest you explore your powers. You have used the Resurrection Stone's abilities, the Death Stick and the Invisibility Cloak remain. Thank Merlin. That means I can probably still do magic. Alright, Professor, I will work on my end. Would you please speak to Mum and Dad and find out why I was resurrected? Of course, my dear boy. Even if I wasn't compelled to help you, I would do so. Goodbye. The aged wizard faded from sight and Harry was left alone with an empty stomach and a mind full of questions. Chapter 2. Harry's head ached as more and more of his newer self's memories invaded his mind. Gah, when will they just feel like my own memories? He cursed, sitting out on the terrace. The worst problem was making sense of the feelings and impressions associated with people and places in those memories. Naruto's outlook was simply not the same as Harry's. There was an innocence and almost boundless enthusiasm that Harry was pressed hard to remember ever feeling. Naruto felt alone and cast out but was determined to make the whole village see him. Harry knew how at least part of that felt. In his younger years he'd been at the mercy of his relatives and suffered the ill will of his neighbors. But where that had made him quiet, Naruto had become loud. Harry laughed to himself thinking if he had lived his life over, knowing what he did now, he wouldn't have been the quiet little boy, shying away from everyone. He probably would be just like Naruto, punishing the bastards for ignoring him. Unlike Naruto, Harry had no expectations of acceptance from people. He'd been made the lauded hero, the maligned demagogue, and everything in between by people. He knew better than to look for acceptance of the masses. Still, there was something of Naruto's enthusiasm for life that was trickling into him. He found himself grinning at nothing and everything and wanting to come up with some crazy prank that would rile up the village. Maybe I'm channeling Fred and George, Harry said to himself. The man landed on his terrace without so much as a by your leave. Harry jumped to his feet and a moment later his memories assaulted him with everything associated with that man. Iruka-sensei. He blurted out, then grabbed his head in his hands, shutting his eyes against the pain. Naruto, what's wrong? You're not feeling well? The man asked putting a hand on his shoulder. Harry shook his head. Nah, it's alright, I just got up too fast, gave me a headache, he said in Naruto's lackadaisical style. He sat back down and watched the man take a seat as well. He was fairly young, maybe in his early 20s, black hair tied back in a rough ponytail, his most distinctive feature being a scar running cheek to cheek over his nose. What are you doing here, sensei? I came to check up on you. I heard what happened. Iruka trailed off, watching him carefully. Harry nodded. It wasn't surprising Iruka would worry about him. As far as he could remember, Iruka was the only teacher at the academy who had taken an interest in him. The young man even treated him to dinner at times. Naruto had a fierce affection for the man, and Harry felt the same. Having someone care for him when no one else would had always engendered deep loyalty in him, and Naruto, of course, wasn't any different. Unfortunately, Harry had stayed quiet too long in his musings, something which was very unlike Naruto. Hey, you okay? Iruka prompted him. Harry smiled softly, figuring if he acted a little off it might be forgiven, seeing as someone had tried to kill him recently. Yeah, sensei, don't worry. Just been thinking. You know. Eh? The young man said in surprise and smirked. Uzumaki Naruto is thinking. I must still be asleep in bed at home and dreaming. Hey. Harry pointed at the man. That's rude. Iruka began laughing, apparently finding Harry's loud response to be normal. Inside Harry was shocked at his instinct to yell at the man. After all, Iruka-sensei was his teacher and some respect should be extended even if the man was making fun of him. But seeing him laugh, Harry couldn't help but smile himself. Yeah, Naruto wasn't your average kid. He was pretty lucky to have a guy like Iruka. So, what were you thinking about? Iruka asked, looking at him intently. Harry looked away and thought quickly, apparently Iruka was sharp enough to see any personality changes Naruto might have, but he was also expecting Naruto to be different after the incident. Harry thought to capitalize on it. Hey, Iruka-sensei, being a shinobi is pretty hard, yeah? Iruka sighed and nodded. Yes, it is. That's why I keep telling you that you have to work harder. If you would just focus. It sounded like an oft-repeated speech, and Harry's memories proved that Naruto had been at the receiving end of this lecture from Iruka many times. It was pretty scary the other day. If it wasn't for the Anbu, I'd be dead, Harry said, keeping his tone deliberately pensive. While Naruto hadn't ever been in a life-or-death situation, Harry had been in many, and by his standards other than the shower of blood, it wasn't too bad. From the corner of his eye he noticed Iruka watching him seriously with a sad expression which the man quickly hid. It can be scary, but if you train hard and work well with your team, you can do anything. Remember, Naruto, we have to keep the will of fire alive, and that's a dangerous job, but an important one, Iruka said, smiling in encouragement. You know, I never understood that will of fire business, I just want to kick ass, Harry said, in approximation of how his newer self might have responded to something like that. Idiot. Iruka's hit him up the head in reprimand. You never change, do you, Naruto? Harry grinned at him after rubbing his head. Serious stuff bores me, sensei. Iruka sighed in a very put-upon fashion. Think of it this way, I'm your teacher and I will protect you with my life, that's the will of fire. To fight for the ones you love, to protect the village. Harry frowned at hearing that and his mind slipped away from keeping up the pretense of being just happy-go-lucky Naruto. Iruka's personal philosophy didn't sound like an assassin's. You're thinking again, Naruto, Iruka teased. Harry chuckled softly but couldn't bring himself to lighten the mood really. Hey, Iruka-sensei, you never looked at me with cold eyes like the rest of the village and all the other teachers. He turned his head so he could meet the young man's eyes. Thank you. The young man looked gobsmacked for a second before he blushed. He looked away and rubbed the bridge of his nose in a mannerism Harry knew from his memories was something the teacher did when he was a little embarrassed. Hey, now, stop acting so mature, brat. Come on, I'll treat you to ramen, he said. Ramen? Harry shouted in glee and tackled the teacher to hug him. It amazed him how much Naruto got away with. Iruka wasn't surprised at the hug and acted as if he was suffering before peeling Harry off. Damn, maybe I want you to be more mature. I think you broke my ribs, Iruka groused good-naturedly, walking ahead of Harry. Harry grabbed the orange jacket and put on the blue sandals by the door of his apartment. Thinking he had laid the groundwork for his personality change, he declared, Sensei, just you watch, this year I'm going to be the top ninja in class. I'll make you proud. Iruka shrugged. That's what you say every year, Naruto. Well, this is the first time someone tried to kill me, alright. Harry snapped. It was vital the man take him seriously. Dumbledore's advice meant the difference between survival or not. He had to get as much knowledge as he could and Iruka was the doorway to that. If the teacher thought Naruto's new studiousness was unexplainable it would cause problems. Iruka was stunned and stared at him in consternation. Don't worry, kid, we will protect you, you know. Harry nodded, pretending to have gotten over his burst of anger. I know, sensei, but I understand now what you said all those times I have to do better at the academy if I have to protect myself. Iruka grinned wolfishly. You really mean that? Are you willing to give your word on it? Harry knew he had to channel his less restrained self now. He thrust his chest out and stabbed his thumb back at himself. I never go back on my word. That's my nindo. Believe it. Iruka laughed and messed Harry's hair. You silly little fool. You're mine now. I am going to make you do every homework assignment you didn't turn in the last 4 years and every test you failed. Chuckling somewhat maniacally the man descended the stairs. Harry was momentarily frozen in the stairwell. Bloody hell, these ninjas are weird. Even the nice ones are mental. The performance at the ramen stand was successful, Harry mused to himself. Iruka seemed to take heart from the fact that Harry had put away 7 bowls of the noodle soup while Harry had wondered if his body was a bottomless bag. Feeling much better and focused after being so well fed, Harry happily followed Iruka to the academy. Naruto's knowledge reminded him that the academy was closed for a week after the final exams, so he expected to meet his new class in a week's time. The academy was a collection of fairly large buildings with red domes. Harry knew that part of the academy was the missions office where shinobi presented themselves for assignments, and the Hokage offices were part of the complex as well. In essence, the academy was the heart of the village. As Harry walked into the academy gates thinking about it being a landmark of the village, Naruto's memories threw up an image of another landmark, the cliff wall where faces of past and present Hokages were carved. He laughed to himself, he should have thought of that before, and resolved to summon a Hokage or two when he was free from Iruka. Iruka led him to the teacher's lounge, which was empty during the break. Iruka's desk was piled with papers and drawers hung out with folders upon folders. Iruka made a production of taking out a particularly thick folder with Uzumaki Naruto written on it and dropped it with a bang on his desk. Let's see, I'd better separate the notices of misbehavior and absences. Iruka grabbed a thick wad of sheets from the folder and put them aside, leaving behind a much thinner file. Harry grinned sheepishly when Iruka glared at him for evidence of his causing hell. Iruka looked over the papers in his hand and started reading them out, bottom of the class in mathematics, science, history, and language arts, and chakra control, impressive record in tactics and trap setting, poor in illusion arts, poor to passable in ninjutsu, good in taijutsu, but we both know you do whatever you want in that class, very good at projectile weapons, poor in strategy, great in stealth. Iruka sighed and looked at him seriously, you know what this shows me? That I suck? Harry asked with a scowl. He knew Naruto was just a little kid, but for all his boasting of wanting to be a great ninja, he didn't seem to care. Iruka shook his head patiently. No, Naruto, it shows me that you can be good in anything you're interested in. You love your pranks and it shows in your stealth, tactics, and trap setting skills. You want to be a close-range fighter and it shows in your enthusiasm in taijutsu, even though you need more guidance. But a Hokage needs to be good at everything. Don't worry, Iruka-sensei, I'm already sold. Just tell me what to do. By the end of the year I would be top in everything, Harry said with quiet determination. Iruka arched a brow in question. In some of these classes you are going to be making up years' worth of gaps in your knowledge and skills, Naruto. I don't want you to give up if you can't reach your goal. Just remember. Progress and improvement is more important than class positions, okay? Harry simply nodded. He wanted the counseling session to end so he could get his hands on those history books piled on shelves in the teacher's lounge. Iruka followed Harry's eyes and saw where he was looking. Ah, he said. The bane of your existence. Books. Harry grinned. I'm not that bad, am I? Iruka gave him a flat look in response. Whatever, Harry groused as Naruto would have. Iruka stood up and pulled out a scroll from his cluttered drawers. He walked over to the shelf and opened the scroll to lay it flat on a surface. Harry watched the writing on the scroll curiously, pulling the word sealing scroll from memory. From what he could remember of his new life, some ninja used these scrolls as storage. Harry was excited to see the magic, because what else could be but magic to store weapons in a scroll and summon them whenever you needed. To his pleasant surprise, Iruka started sealing stacks of books in the storage seal. As the young man worked, Harry pondered his situation. He wasn't looking forward to burying himself in readings, having always been someone who learned by doing. But as it stood, he had no Hermione to do the tiresome research for him and summarize everything. Of course, Iruka was right about both his old and new personality, as long as it was something that he was interested he could be as well read as Hermione. After all, he was ahead by years of his peers when it came to defense against the dark arts knowledge, regardless of theory or practical. He wasn't sure if all this school learning was the fastest way to learn how to survive in this new world. He didn't realize how long he'd been lost in thought because Iruka had apparently gone back to his desk and had written out a plan for him. The young man handed the storage scroll and the study plan to him. This is very ambitious, Naruto, but I saw something in your eyes back at your apartment when you vowed you wanted to do your best, which told me that you might just be able to do this. Now, I will see you in a week. You better be a changed man, Iruka admonished without any heat, if the fond smile on his face was anything to go by. Thanks, sensei, Harry said, waving his hand in a carefree manner and left. The day was still young, so Harry decided to visit one of Naruto's favorite spots, the Hokage Monument. The kid was wont to sitting on top of the fourth Hokage's head and while away the day. Without really thinking about it, Harry fixed the image of the place in his mind and disapparated. With a jerk he arrived right on top of the monument and let out a yell of joy. Yes. I can still apparate. Wait, can ninja apparate? He asked himself and dug into his memories. The answer came much quicker and clearer that while they could move at incredible speeds at times, something like teleportation was beyond them. With the exception of the man whose monument he was standing on. Humming down from his excitement, Harry sat down in a careful position as Naruto had been taught for meditation on his chakra. Harry used the same principles in his occlumency training to begin asking himself the many questions he had about the village, Naruto's life, and ninja. After all, he thought to himself, best to go right to the source, instead of books. As before, when Harry explored his memories, he lost track of time and any sense of his surroundings. His mind conjured his journey into reminiscence like the experience of dipping into a pensive. With sharp clarity he saw and felt everything, allowing the merging that he had been keeping at bay from fear of losing himself. Once the merging had completed, Harry slipped into the calming experience of meditating on his chakra. He knew now from his memories that Naruto hadn't been as touched with his spiritual and physical strength as Harry was. He imagined his years of training in magic and pulling out power from inside shadowed Naruto's own efforts, but with both of his selves combined, it was a far more enriching exercise. Sinking into the feeling of this power, chakra, Harry rode it as it coursed through the network in his body it had carved. He never imagined one could be so aware of his own body or the potential it held. Where Naruto had lacked maturity and focus in his meditation, he did have a natural instinct for sensing chakra. Harry smiled to himself. Instinctual knowledge had been his strongest point. The more he judged that Naruto and he were different, the more he learned that they were similar. It would take him some time to fully accept that they were one and the same person. It was this moment of confusion when he felt a pressure on his mind, similar to a Legilimens attack. Harry gathered his will to close himself off her attack with his owl Legilimens curse when a voice echoed in his mind, "My Lord Master of Death, I am of your clan, and I request an audience." A cold feeling swept through Harry. He didn't realize the dead could seek him out, for he knew without a doubt that the woman seeking entrance to his mind was a spirit. He cursed himself for not looking into his powers, but at least he was learning by instinct. Just as he had known the woman calling to him was a spirit, he knew she wasn't lying to him. Permission granted, Harry called out in his mind. At once he found himself in a mindscape as he had when he had met Dumbledore once in the ghostly King's Cross station. They were atop the Hokage monument, but the surroundings had taken on a pale, ethereal glow. A woman in a beautiful kimono sat in the Caesar position in front of him, the same position he found himself in. She had streaming red hair and diamond-shaped mark on her forehead. She bowed to him. "My lord, I am Uzumaki Mido, one of your ancestors, and wife to the first Hokage. Please rise, you are my elder, Mido Dono," Harry said, utilizing a respectful honorific for the woman who he had learned from his new self's memories, was a very respected member of the village in her time. She straightened and met his eyes confidently with a small smile. "It is good to see humility in one of the last of my clan. As you were just a few days ago, this conversation would have been very difficult to have with you." "Thank you, grandmother," Harry said with a wry smile. "Ah," the woman exclaimed in mock exasperation, "perhaps I spoke too soon. I am not of your direct bloodline, my lord." Harry nodded. "Why are you here?" Her very red lips, which had been quirked in a teasing smile, turned to a frown. "You came close to death recently, and I was drawn to you as you would be the last of my legacy to cross over. When you remembered yourself and awakened your authority as Master of Death, I wished to speak with you immediately, but until a few moments ago you had not accepted yourself as an Uzumaki, and I could not be sure if you would honor your family if I made contact. And now you have made contact, Mido Dono, for which I am very pleased. So why, again, did you wish to speak with me?" Harry asked. The woman seemed to hesitate a moment. "Even though you are not of my direct bloodline, you are my legacy, my lord, and you have not been prepared for the responsibility." Harry frowned at her. "I don't have a good feeling about this." The woman's lips quirked in a smile. "No one ever does. You are the vessel keeping the nine-tailed demon fox imprisoned, my lord, just as I did in life, just as your mother did in life." Harry could do nothing but stare in disbelief at the woman in his mindscape as she gave an apologetic shrug. Chapter 3. Hiruzen Sarutobi was a tired man of many years who no longer found rest and sleep. Most shinobi did not live to be his age, and none had led one of the most powerful ninja villages in the world as long as he had. For all the honor of those two distinctions, he dearly wished he could get a single good night's sleep. So it was well before dawn that the man found himself awake and pondering the many issues that plagued him as the Hokage. Candles burned low in his office, casting yellow light on dusty scrolls and maps of Fire Country and beyond. Sarutobi's early quiet morning was disturbed when a mechanical bird flew through his tower's window to alight on his desk, almost toppling his pipe. The old man frowned. Expecting that a message at that hour could only be about trouble. He took the tiny scroll from the bird and read the coded message from one of his Anbu. "Agent Orange has been meditating on top the Hokage monument for past 18 hours. He has been outputting chakra waves of fluctuating strength. At the time of this report the chakra has become visible. All attempts to bring Agent Orange out of meditative coma have failed. Suspect subject is agitated as chakra output is becoming volatile. Please advise." cat. The Hokage stood from his desk and went to his window, throwing it open to look upon the monument which was clearly visible from his office. Indeed, on top of the fourth Hokage's head, he could see a speck of light that seemed to be pulsing. In the late hours of night it was more visible than it would have been during day. Sarutobi used the body flicker technique to make his way atop the monument, faster than the eye of any average ninja to follow. Arriving, he noticed that several Anbu had formed a loose cordon around the monument, keeping any curious night owls from finding out exactly who was emitting the chakra light. It was, after all, not normal for chakra to be visible unless employed by very powerful ninjas using equally powerful techniques. One of his Anbu nodded to him as he passed the cordon, and Kat soon joined him. "Hokage-sama." She gave a short bow. "Forgive me for disturbing your rest, but I thought you would want to manage this situation yourself." Sarutobi nodded, his robes whispering around his ankles as he walked quickly to Naruto. "You made the right call, Kat. You have been with him all day?" he asked. "I took over his watch yesterday when the Anbu tailing him lost him in the afternoon. He is new to this detail and doesn't know Uzumaki's usual haunts. I was able to find him within minutes," she explained. Sarutobi chuckled as he came to a stop some ways behind Naruto. "Perhaps we should require special training for Anbu when they are assigned watch duty. Naruto does have a penchant for keeping his guardians on their toes." The cat mask Anbu shrugged. "No lesson is learned better than it is in battle." "Now, cat," Sarutobi admonished lightly. Watching Naruto is hardly akin to battle. He did not hear the woman grumbling as he left her behind to go sit next to Naruto. The boy was sitting in the proper stance for chakra meditation, with his hands and fingers locked in Ram's seal. Around him a blue glow pulsed and receded to an indiscernible rhythm. It was raw chakra, and while it was impressive that the boy had enough of it to be visible, the fact that it was fluctuating showed that whatever Naruto was meditating on was troubling him. "I shook him and even shouted at him, but he did not wake. I was hesitant to use more force," Kat reported, standing behind the Hokage. Sarutobi hummed to himself in thought. Iruka reported that the encounter with the enemy ninja you executed had frightened him and that he was hungering to improve his skills. I wonder if his weakness in that moment is still bothering him. I have never seen him sit still so long, such a deep meditative state as she trailed off. Unusual in someone so young, Sarutobi finished for her. "Well, I'm afraid we cannot let it continue like this. Before long people in the village will be awake and it will be much harder to hide Naruto's chakra release." The old man stood up and formed seals with his hands. When he was finished his palms glowed with a faint white light and he set them upon Naruto's back. He looked over his shoulder at Kat. "Remind me to teach this technique to you so you can pass it on to anyone on watch duty. This will siphon off his chakra at a dramatic rate. It should break his concentration without the risk of chakra going wild, as you would be absorbing it." "Yes, Hokage-sama," Kat said. And just as her leader had said, the chakra light around Naruto dimmed and what had been a peaceful expression on his face gave way to a frown. Slowly his eyes fluttered open and he released his hands from the seal. He looked over his shoulder, eyes flashing with annoyance. "Hey, Gramps, would you break my concentration? Don't you know it's rude to disturb someone who is meditating?" The Hokage chuckled even as Kat stopped herself from reprimanding the boy for speaking to the Sandaime so disrespectfully. The old man didn't seem to mind the boy's tone, however. He reached over and ruffled the boy's hair, earning himself another scowl. Now, Naruto, you have been up here alone almost all night. What if a bear came out and ate you?" "Yeah, right." Naruto scoffed. "No bear can get past Kitty-chan." Pat sighed inside, knowing that even more of the Anbu would become aware of her new nickname. "Kitty-chan?" the Sandaime repeated with amusement. Naruto nodded seriously. "Kitty-chan is the most kick-ass kunoichi of Konoha. I'm going to be just like her." He seemed to pause in thought. "Even though I don't have her freakish strength and her long gorilla-like arms, you know, she picked me up and ran to my home without stopping once. Guess I need her thick-toed thighs to jump from roof to roof like her. Her lungs are probably big as a horse's." She wasn't even out of breath. "It's odd though, because her breasts aren't huge." Whatever else he was going to say was muffled behind the Sandaime's hand. "Ah, Naruto, I think it's best I take you home before Kitty-chan loses her temper," the Hokage said, and picking up the boy body flickered away. Pat's shoulders were slumped hearing about her gorilla arms, toed thighs and apparently breasts that hadn't impressed Uzumaki. "The breastplate flattens them, it's not a fair judgment," she muttered to herself. "Don't worry, Kat-san, I think you're the very model of feminine grace and beauty," one of her subordinates said. "Just shut up, hippo," she snapped. "Yes, Captain," the man ducked his head. How dare that brat compare Kat-san's perfectly shapely thighs to a toad? He fumed to himself. Scene break. The Sandaime chose not to body flicker all the way to Naruto's apartment. The village was quiet and peaceful at this time of the night and he wanted to both enjoy a walk and speak to Naruto. The boy next to him was fairly subdued, regardless of how exuberant he had been atop the monument. So Naruto, were you just meditating on your chakra? You were at it for a very long time, he began, carefully watching the boy's expression. The child nodded, putting his hands behind his head casually. Iruka-sensei says the only reason I am bad at school stuff is because I don't like it. So I told myself I love meditating. I won't fail my chakra control classes anymore. The Sandame laughed, amused by the enthusiasm and how true Iruka's analysis had turned out to be. Naruto simply needed to focus. Well, I can tell that you will do very well, Naruto. I'm going to be just like kick-ass Kitty-chan. She saved my life. He punched the air. His expression faltered suddenly. But. What is it? The old ninja asked gently. Kitty-chan and enemy ninja are so big. Even if I get better at school, they would still beat me. I'm a close-range fighter, but what would it matter if my fists and kicks can't even reach the enemy? The boy looked to him with those expressive blue eyes. The Sandame didn't voice his amusement at the boy thinking of himself as already a close-range specialist. He put on an act of thinking deeply. Well, Naruto, close range is not the only way to fight enemies, is it? You could use ninjutsu from a distance or throwing weapons. Or you could use a sword like your Kitty-chan to increase reach. When I was your age I used a staff. He winked at the boy. I was pretty small for my age too. That seemed to bring back the boy's enthusiasm, and he grinned at the man. Hey, Gramps, can you teach me? We'll see, the Hokage hedged, knowing outright saying no would only make the boy more determined. They were nearing the apartment building, so he slowed down to ask the boy a question that had been bothering him. Naruto, did you know Kat-sen was with you when you were meditating? Of course, old man, I'm not stupid, the boy groused. I didn't say you were stupid, he chastised the kid. How did you know she was there? The boy shrugged. I can tell when she's around, just like when you or Iruka-sensei are there. She stopped by when I just started meditating, I didn't say hi because I was trying to concentrate. Can you tell when other Anbu are around? Sandame asked, becoming very curious. Naruto seemed to think about the question. I don't know, I never tried to look for them. After Kitty-chan saved me, she took me home and I learned. I guess I know what she feels like now. Well, that's very good, Naruto. Most ninja are a little older before they are able to identify chakra signatures. Let me know if you are able to sense other Anbu around the village. Now, go ahead and try to get some rest. Sarutobi gently nudged the boy toward the apartment building. He stood outside till the boy disappeared inside the building, then turned to return to the tower. He pondered the meeting. At least on the surface the boy hadn't changed much, but here and there his questions showed that he had been affected by recent events. Sarutobi did not lament the change, knowing that if the child wanted to be a functioning shinobi someday, a little maturity at the cost of losing his innocence was not a poor bargain. He smiled to himself at the thought that perhaps Naruto might have some crude sensor abilities. No one would accuse the boy for being perceptive typically. All in all, Sarutobi returned to his duties with a much lighter heart. Scene break. Barry shut the door and held out his palm, casting the charms for secrecy he and his friends had used while camping on their hunt for the Horcruxes. He sighed in relief when the spells did take effect. He hadn't been sure he would be able to cast those charms without a wand. Once he had his privacy, he dropped the grinning mask, and his expression looked thunderous. Mito Dono, he called, turning toward a woman who appeared in the real world now. Why did you tell me to ask the old man about my issue with reach? The woman half small regal bow. My lord, you are very vexed right now, and while you were able to act as you did before your awakening, you were not thinking to say something which would convince Sarutobi that you had been affected by the attempt on your life. By asking that question you displayed that you are feeling vulnerable. He will not be suspicious now if you were to now work to remove that weakness, and it will only cement the notion that you have matured. Barry watched her for a moment after she finished, trying to find flaw in her reasoning. Finally accepting it, he simply grunted in acknowledgement and sat on the couch with a deep frown. My lord, Mito Dono said, coming to sit before him. I understand that you wish to rail against the Hokage and curse him for keeping these secrets from you. However, if you had you would have aroused Sarutobi's suspicion. He is not a man to be taken lightly. Barry did not answer, he simply sat and fumed. He was finding it hard to even believe all the things that had been revealed to him and the awful parallels between his first life and his circumstances as Naruto. If it hadn't been Mito quietly pleading with him to keep up the act of the clueless child with Sarutobi, he would have done the man a fatal injury. Intellectually he knew that not taking any action while he was furious was the most sensible thing to do, but that gave him no moral satisfaction. Forgive me, my lord. I have burdened you, Mito Dono spoke, bowing so low that her red hair kissed the floor. Barry glared at her balefully, knowing she was not the cause of his problems, but unable to be understanding just at that moment. Jinchuriki, he said in a loathing-filled whisper. The power of human sacrifice. Did you know, Mito Dono, that in my previous life I was a human sacrifice as well? That the man I thought loved me and was my guardian was simply helping me stay alive until the correct moment where I could lay down my life. He suddenly shouted. And here my own father put a demon inside me. There was a long silence before Mito Dono spoke. My lord, I suspected that you were a reborn soul, but I did not know for certain, nor did I know of your other life. I am ashamed that the village I sacrificed so much for acted in the way it has. But most of all, my lord, as one of your clansmen, I am aggrieved to hear that even when reincarnated, you did not have a better fate awaiting you than your last life. Some of Harry's anger dissipated at the older woman's words. Please raise your head, Mito Dono. I am sorry I yelled at you, it isn't your fault. I should be thanking you for telling me everything. The woman came closer to him and kneeled once again, this time by his feet. Slowly she reached out and rested a half-transparent hand over his. Harry was stunned to find that he could feel the warmth in it, even if it didn't feel solid. Mito Dono seemed surprised as well, but she schooled her features quickly. My lord, I am here for you. You are my legacy and you are my family. As master of death you know that my loyalty is yours to command, but I wish you to understand that I give it to you freely without obligation. She placed her other hand on his cheek in a maternal gesture. Suspect others in your life as you will, but you may trust in me without reservation. Harry smiled wanly, despite himself taking heart in her words and her presence. Thank you, Mito Dono. He stood, slipping away from her comforting hands to go make himself dinner. She stood and followed him as he went cupboard to cupboard finding only cups of instant ramen. Strangely that did not bother him, and he found himself looking forward to the quick meal. While he waited for the water to boil, he decided to speak his mind on some things, hoping to see how loyal Mito was to him. Mito Dono, my experience is that being right about something doesn't matter as long as you're too weak to fight for what is right. In my old life I was somewhat strong in magic. Magic? Truly? She smiled in open curiosity. It's not so surprising, is it? A lot of this ninjutsu is like magic, not to mention the idea of demons, Harry said. Mito Dono nodded as if thinking on it. Perhaps, but magic is divine or demonic power, something unexplainable, that follows no logic. It is a power not experienced by those in the mortal realm. Follows no logic. Harry scoffed. If you said that in front of my transfiguration professor, she would have you writing lines for a month. Mito Dono laughed softly. Forgive me, I interrupted you. You were speaking of being righteous and power. Harry nodded, becoming serious again. Yeah. Basically, I wasn't powerful enough to be really at the same level as the masters of magic in my life, and I didn't know so much about my own life that I was finding out secrets to literally my dying day. He paused to pour the boiling water from the kettle into the ramen cups. I didn't know that there wasn't anyone really looking out for me just for my sake, other than my best friends. Here, I don't have anyone, he looked at her apologetically, except you, of course, Mito Dono. So what it means is that I have to become powerful enough to be reckoned with, and I need to know everything about myself. He turned to fix her with a determined expression, which was ruined because he had to look up at the regal woman. I will not be manipulated because of my weakness or ignorance. From this moment I consider Konoha my enemy, including the old man, Sarutobi. It wouldn't be the first time someone was kind to me just to use me later. Can you be loyal to me knowing how I feel now? The woman sighed, casting her eyes on the floor. I love this village and it pains me to hear you declare it your enemy, but I trust that you will find people here to love. My loyalty is not in doubt, I have given you my word and I never break my word. She raised her eyes to catch his and gave him an amused smile, such as my Nindo as well. Harry chuckled. Yeah, I can accept that. Trust me, he said as his eyes became distant and his shoulders fell, showing defeat. I am not looking for revenge, and I don't want to make enemies. I'm just tired of having my trust betrayed. In the world of the shinobi you must be powerful enough that for others to betray your trust is a fatal mistake. You are very wise to know that without strength and knowledge you cannot hope that people will be charitable and do right by you, my lord. She nodded to herself. I will train you in the skills essential to a vessel and particular techniques of the Uzumaki clan. The teachers you have had so far and Sarutobi have missed a very basic reason you performed poorly. Barry ate his ramen, secretly pleased to see the woman so fired up. And what is that besides my hyper nature? The Uzumaki clan was blessed with exceptional vitality. We lived longer and stronger than others, and we had on average greater chakra than others. But those of our clan chosen to be Jinchuriki had exceptionally great chakra with the ability to manipulate it in ways unknown to other clans. Your mother, for example, took to forming chains with her chakra that could manifest outside her body. They were formidable enough to trap and hold a demon like the nine-tailed fox, even when she was at death's door. Mito Dono smiled with fierce pride. And so, young Naruto should have been taught to manage his chakra, as it is taught in the Uzumaki clan. Harry pondered her words as he continued to eat, enjoying the warmth of the noodle soup. Mention of his mother made him feel awkward. To him only Lily Potter deserved being called mother, but the little Mito Dono had told him about Kushina made him curious. He could summon her, of course, to meet her, but it was too soon. He did not know how to feel about her yet. I have to admit, Harry said. When I was meditating on my chakra, it was kind of overwhelming. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to manage it. As any problem, one must separate it in smaller parts and solve it step by step. The woman was smiling at him with a glint in her eye that Harry couldn't quite figure out. You are up to something, Harry said with a raised brow. Oh, yes, I am planning on teaching you a forbidden jutsu. A technique which was common enough for the Uzumaki clan, but dangerous for clans without our vitality or chakra reserves. It is a necessary tool for an Uzumaki Jinchuriki. She made a hand seal and called out something, and suddenly there were 10 versions of her standing in Harry's apartment. Harry was about to say he already knew about the illusion, but the words died on his lips when he sensed her soul in each and every copy of her. Oh wow. With your chakra divided amongst copies of you, you can learn to use your chakra precisely. That was the purpose of creating this technique. However, its side benefits are even more useful. Each copy of yours functions in the same way you would, and when it is dispelled, its experiences are absorbed back into you. She gave him a wry smile. I imagine if you intend to keep your promise to that young boy, Iruka, you could use this technique to cover many subjects at the same time. Harry laughed suddenly, happy to see things finally looking up. Mito Dono, the only way you could make me happier right now would be to tell me where I could find a phoenix. Mito Dono, who had been enjoying showing off, suddenly felt off balance at the odd question. What do you need a phoenix for, Naruto? She asked, forgetting the more formal address. For a magic wand, I need either a phoenix feather or tail hair from a unicorn or a heartstring from a dragon. If I can make a wand, I can do magic, Harry explained. Mito Dono thought for a moment. I wonder if there is a summoning jutsu for divine beings. Harry's ears perked up. What exactly is a summoning jutsu? Scene break. It was noon the next day and Harry had not slept yet. His eyes were gritty with the need to rest and he was constantly yawning. He had given Mito Dono her leave somewhere around late morning after questioning her on creatures she insisted were just mythical and possibilities of how to summon the supposed non-existent beings. After she had left, Harry continued working on the shadow copy technique she had demonstrated. His mind was far too active to sleep and repeatedly working on something had helped him clear his thoughts. As Harry had expected, Naruto had an instinct for techniques if he could simply try them. Utilizing the younger boy's experiences and inclinations and his own abilities, Harry was very pleased to be sitting in his lounge surrounded by copies of himself. Sadly he was too beat to keep them going and dispelled them to do one last thing before he allowed himself rest. He traced a circle on his palms and fixed the name and image of the man he wished to call from beyond death. Having called his name, Harry waited and after a very long minute he appeared slumped on his floor with his matted hair streaming into his wild eyes. Severus Snape looked haunted and ill. Snape looked around, casting his eyes at Harry, but not recognizing him since all he saw was a little blonde boy. Where am I? How did I get here? Harry cocked his head to the side at his professor's strained voice. You are in another realm of existence than you spent your life in. I suppose you already know I am the master of death and I have summoned you here. The man nodded jerkily and painfully rose to his feet, staring all the time from jaundiced eyes. Millard, how is it you know of me to call me? Harry almost wanted to smile and taunt the man, but his broken condition stopped him. We knew each other when we were both alive. I was reborn in this world after my death. Snape's eyes widened and his sallow skin seemed to pale even more. Lord Vold. No, Harry cut him off. With a grim smile he said, I suppose you never really expected me to win against him, did you? Snape blinked in confusion. Potter. You're the master of death. Yes, now tell me what happened to you. No one else I've summoned has been in your condition, Harry said. Snape laughed humorlessly. Perhaps they had made better choices in life. I'd thought selling my soul to Dumbledore would redeem it, but I have much to pay for and I have been paying for it ever since I died. This is my first moment free of torment. Harry winced inside but did not let it show. It was unexpected that Snape would confess something like that to him and most likely the man only did because he was compelled to do so. Most importantly, Harry had been thinking about this decision all morning while he worked on Mito Dono's technique. He had decided that pitying the man like Dumbledore had would do him no good. We all expected Dumbledore to be more than he was, Harry said. Snape grunted, so you went to your death, head held high. Harry shrugged, choosing to let that be all the answer. Despite every wrong you have done me, Snape, you didn't like the idea of raising me like a barnyard animal just to be slaughtered. Well, in hindsight, I don't like the idea too much myself and I am in the same situation again. Why am I not surprised? Snape sneered, absent-mindedly looking at the apartment. I suppose you have moved up in the world, out of the cupboard into a derelict hole in the wall. Harry raised a brow, affecting a cold expression he had seen on Snape many times. Snape, I am the Master of Death, you are here because I summoned you. Do you want me to send you back to whichever hellhole I pulled you out of? Snape's back straightened and the sneer vanished. That would be unnecessary. I live to serve. Harry rolled his eyes at the morbid joke. You are going to be as difficult as possible. If I knew you can't betray me, I'd be too happy to send you away. But I need a spy master, and you're the only one I know. Snape inclined his head in question before smirking. So you have understood the value of intelligence. I'll do anything, just keep me out of. He trailed off. Harry nodded slowly. I'm willing to keep you safe from paying your debts, Snape. In turn you will give me absolute loyalty, hold back nothing and devote yourself utterly. This is my order. Acceptable, Snape said simply, then with a thought added, Millard. Harry cringed at the title, knowing that the man probably only meant it as a title. My name in this realm is Uzumaki Naruto. I am something called a Jinchuriki, which is a human prison for a demon. We are in the village hidden in the leaves of ninja. Ninja? Snape uttered the word with such ridicule that Harry was glad Mito Dono wasn't around to hear it. Yes, as insane as it sounds. They seem to be more like soldiers and mercenaries for hire than just assassins, but I am not sure. Your job is to spy on their leader. I want to know what they want with me, what their plans are. Snape crossed his arms. You are not thinking of this clearly. Oh? I see that you have formed the logical conclusion that if you have a demon inside you, someone will want to use you, but that someone is not necessarily just one person. Power attracts many competing forces. Think back to our life, you had the Ministry, Dumbledore, and even the Dark Lord who wished to use you for their purposes. Snape shook his head in disappointment. It is not as simple as you're imagining it. Harry grinned. Well, I suppose you are the spy master then. Fine, do whatever you think is necessary. Just find out everything relevant to me or Jinchuriki. If I have enemies, I want to know who they are. And how to eliminate them, Snape added. It will be done. He bowed in the manner Harry had seen him bow to Lord Voldemort and disappeared. Well, shit, life sure is weird. Snape bowing to me, Harry declared before falling back on the couch to promptly fall asleep. Chapter 4. It was 2 days since Harry had sent Snape on his mission. 2 days that he had spent brooding on his new circumstances. If it were not for his extreme need for information he wouldn't even have created the shadow clones, Mito Dono had taught him to begin his studies. Now he stood in the waxing moonlight in front of the memorial stone of fallen heroes. He stared at the names of the Hokages on it, but again and again his eyes drifted to the name Uzumaki Kushina. She had both been his mother and a Jinchuriki. He could use both right then to help him figure out his new life. His fingers itched to trace the circle in his palms to summon her, but his heart was torn at the thought he may be betraying Lily Potter by acknowledging Kushina. He ran his hands through his hair in frustration and turned away to return home. He only managed a few steps when he froze in doubt again. The world Naruto had grown up in was confusing, and the boy had dealt with it by almost single-mindedly obsessing over becoming Hokage. But for Harry that wasn't enough. He needed to understand what the role of a Jinchuriki was, what did the villager Sarutobi expected of him. The history books only said that the first Hokage divided up the tailed demons amongst villages to balance power. Was Naruto simply a strategic counterweight? A weapon of demonic destruction to stave off other villages' imperial ambitions? These were answers that Kushina probably had, having been a Jinchuriki herself. Harry returned to the memorial stone, almost determined now to call the woman who had brought him into his second life. Unfortunately, it was just then that his reverie was broken by a loud voice counting off numbers. 382. The shout came. 383. The voice was getting nearer. 384. A tall man wearing a bodysuit somersaulted into the clearing around the memorial stone. Harry stared at the heavily breathing man as he performed another somersault and landed right in front of him. Yosh. What is a youthful child like you doing here? You should be in bed, ready to fan the flames of youth as the sun rises tomorrow. The man with the bowl-cut hairstyle bellowed, causing sleeping birds in a nearby tree to take off in fright. They're just paying my respects, Harry said unsurely. The man seemed unhinged, but Harry couldn't judge if he was dangerous. He stepped back a little just to be safe and fixed the image of his apartment in his mind, in case he needed to disapparate away. The man was nodding to himself seriously. It is most youthful of you to honor our heroes this late at night, but you will worry your guardians. Harry waved his hand dismissively with a wry smile. They're right here. He motioned to the memorial stone. The tall man grabbed his shoulder forcefully, presumably to comfort him, his other hand was closed in a pumping fist, and his eyes seemed to have teared up. Such a hip cool attitude toward your grief. Yosh. I, the beautiful green beast of Konohamaito guy, will be your most youthful big brother from now on. Ah, ha, ha. Harry's eyes widened at the utterly insane man and his powerful grip on him. You really don't have to do that, and aren't you old enough to be my uncle anyway? The man suddenly hung his head in dejection and brought his other hand to rest on Harry's shoulders as well. There's that hip attitude ruining my style again. But I will not give up. I must fan the flames of youth that burn so brightly in you. And if you will not have me as your elder brother, then I will be the best uncle you ever have, and if I can't do that, I will climb the Hokage Mount using only 2 fingers. At the end of his declaration, Guy had once again raised his head and was staring at Harry with unworldly determination. Luckily during the speech Harry had noticed the Konoha head protector clipped to Guy's belt and decided that Sarutobi wouldn't allow someone demented to serve as a ninja, so despite what he saw, Guy was probably alright. Guy-san. Nai-san, the man corrected with a blinding smile. Hey. I thought we decided you're too old to be my brother. I'm only 26, my fires of youth will not allow me to be an uncle, Guy said the last with horror. Well, you need to tweeze your eyebrows or something because they make you look old, Guy-san. Harry crossed his arms and gave him a grin of his own. How is it you have such fires of youth and also a hip attitude? You cannot have both. Now call me Nai-san, for I have vowed to take away your loneliness. Guy bellowed. Harry was taken aback by the man's latest declaration. He had seemed totally oblivious to Harry's mood throughout the encounter, but suddenly displayed that he wasn't as stupid as he acted. Hey, Nai-san, Harry began, giving in to calling the man brother, don't worry about me, I was just sulking a little. I promise my air flames of youth don't need to be fanned. I nodded sagely, and he released Harry to turn to the memorial stone. I have many friends and family here. He nodded to the stone. I used to come here to find comfort in them, but it did not help, their names were there, but their souls of course, are not here. I lost myself wondering why I couldn't find comfort at this stone when so many of my colleagues and friends could. He looked over his shoulder and piercing Harry with such a serious expression that Harry wondered if it was the same man as before. But one day I realized I was not wrong to feel nothing here because their legacy is not carved on polished rock. Their legacy is here. He pointed to his heart. They died so their comrades and families could live. Live. He said smacking his fist in his hand. They died to keep our flames alive and so now I honor them with burning the flames inside me. He smiled, softening the grave expression on his face. And now I will help you, passing on their legacy to you, Uzumaki Naruto. Harry could only blink in shock at the man's sudden depth and confession. He wet his lips, trying to find something to say. When nothing came, he weakly asked, does anyone in this village not know who I am? Of course not, you are Uzumaki Naruto, Konoha's #1 delinquent. Guy bellowed, reverting to his manic persona. Harry could do nothing but laugh until he had tears in his eyes. Believe it. He shouted. The strange man had somehow broken him out of his funk. Little brother, you will help me finish somersaulting 500 times before dawn. Guy ran to him and chucked him in the air. Harry had no option to somersault to land on his feet. 385. Guy threw him in the air again, following him a second later. This is not happening, Harry thought, getting completely manhandled by Konoha's green maniac. Scene break. Dumbledore sat in his ghostly chair in Harry's apartment, watching him attempt to transfigure a chair into a box. Harry's cursed for the umpteenth time and gave up. See? I am totally useless. The old wizard smiled gently. Of course not, dear boy. As you have already told me and demonstrated, you can cast quite a lot of magic without a wand. But I can't do this. I have been trying to transfigure things all day, Harry protested. Harry, it is normal to expect that magic you are most familiar with, such as your defense spells, the summoning charm, and the spells you and your friends used admirably on your hunt for the Horcruxes on a daily basis will work. While transfiguration of lounge furniture, which is something I am sure you practiced little outside of class, is difficult. It's simply a matter of mastery of the magic you truly know and the magic you do not. But I could do this with a wand, I just can't do it wandlessly. Harry frowned. Just practice, Harry. That is all to it. The Elder Wand is powerful enough that it will amplify the spells. I am sure once you are comfortable with it even your neglected disciplines will come to you naturally. The man smiled in bemusement, knowing no student ever liked to hear that they just had to put the hard work in. Harry nodded reluctantly. Still, I need to have some way of hiding that I am doing magic. These ninja are not familiar with our way of doing things. They will be suspicious. Perhaps the Lady Mito can cast some insight on that subject. He suggested. Yay, about her, did you think of a way we can figure out she is being truthful without me using the Hallows equivalent of Veritaserum? I think she would be really insulted if I forced her, Harry mused. Severus suggested something. Dumbledore said carefully. Don't dismiss it out of hand, Harry. I think he may have an idea which could solve more than one problem. Harry shrugged noncommittally. Fire away. Scene break. Appearances must be kept and besides it was too much fun not to indulge himself. Harry held the plastic plate in his hand, concentrating on the transfiguration he wanted. 15 minutes later, after much frustration, the plate had changed its shape to match what he hoped for. It resembled the cat Anbu's mask fairly closely, only with the addition of whisker marks. The charm to change his hair color was much easier, yellow blonde turned to purple like the woman's who he had declared as his newest idol. Mask on and clothes charmed to vaguely look like Anbu uniform, Harry headed out of the apartment. He remembered that the first day of school was always fun because everyone showed up early to meet up with their friends. So he knew that he would find them all present before classes started. And, unfortunately, he knew his new class knew him already. Harry cringed at the memory of Naruto trying to lower his senpai status over this class the past year and getting his ass handed to him by the junior class's rising star, Uchiha Sasuke. Not to mention how many times he had been brutally rejected by the pink-haired girl young Naruto crushed on. So Harry, with aware of extra years on his soul, decided to even the score of humiliation. The gates to the academy were wide open and the courtyard just inside was teeming with Tichi Academy students. Harry grinned behind the mask, identifying the class that had been behind him, the bastard Uchiha Sasuke, who had shamed him in joint Taijutsu classes and the rest. Uchiha seemed to be trying to stand a little apart with his dark head hanging in an expression of cool brooding, but he was surrounded by girls hopeful for his attention. The pale boy was ignoring them and so was the first to notice the cat masked Anbu enter the academy. Following his gaze the girls turned to spy Harry in his mock Anbu gear as well. The blonde-haired girl frowned. "Oh no, Anbu-san, what are you doing here?" Her father had told her of some ninja who were talented enough to make into the elite Anbu division, while others their age were just genins, but she didn't know there was anyone current like that. Last one she knew of was her crush's older brother. In answer the young Anbu planted himself in the courtyard, arms crossed over his chest, and seemed to stare at them from the holes in the cat mask. "Academy brats." He shouted unnecessarily, because by then all the other children had quieted to look at the odd side of an Anbu visiting the academy. Harry, seeing he had their full attention, grinned to himself. Hokage-sama has heard that this year's class is full of prodigies and heirs to the major clans of the village. He wants me to test the talent and see if he can promote you and begin your training with the elite Anbu. He watched with amusement as Uchiha Sasuke's eyes took on a determined glint and a smirk. Bastard Naruto's memories provided his oft-used nickname for the talented kid. Yes. Let's show him what we can do. A child with a wild look about him and a puppy pumped his fist. Good, Harry said. Form 2 squads on me. Our mission is to storm the Hokage Tower and plant one of these flags on the roof and one in the Hokage office. He unfurled 2 purple flags with the cat mask and the words Kick-Ass Kitty-chan Division. What the hell? Why do we need to plant a flag? Some kid asked. Harry had turned around and started walking expecting them to fall behind him, which they did. Over his shoulder he said, "It's a test. If you can get in the office, you could theoretically steal important documents." Oh. And if anyone asks what you're doing, you're testing out for the Anbu Juniors division. As he began to jog the short distance to the Hokage Tower, Uchiha Sasuke fell in right next to him, obviously wanting to prove himself. As expected the girls of the class followed right behind him. 5 minutes later they turned a corner and were inside of the tower and the 2 Chunin guards at the main entrance. "Alright, Uchiha, you will be responsible for the flag on the roof. Once we get into the Sandame's office, you will use the window to climb onto the roof with 3 others and secure the flag. It will be your job to make sure no one takes down the flag." "Hi." Sasuke said with all the seriousness he could muster, which was depressingly much for a kid. Harry felt a twinge of guilt which he squashed knowing the bastard deserved it for looking down on him. Harry picked up the pace and he saw the 2 Chunin guards at the gate watching the crowd of kids warily as they were making a beeline to the tower. Harry held up his right hand, motioning to half the kids who were running in a squad on his right. "Take out the guards, attack." With a high-pitched war cry Sasuke and his girls broke upon the 2 Chunin. Kunais attached with ninja wire flew at their legs, just as others jumped to body check the 2 stunned young men. Sasuke launched an impressive flying back kick in the face of one as his audience squealed at his coolness. Harry was glad to see the girls were not totally distracted. One wide-eyed girl took advantage of the Chunin's distraction to perform an odd taijutsu strike with open palms at the men's knees. They both fell, their legs giving way under them at the deceptively soft strikes. After that the other kunoichi overwhelmed them with numbers. "Good job. Some of you guard them, the rest with me." Harry rushed through the door ahead of the keening war cry that the kids were emitting. He saw one of the secretary's eyes widen at the invasion and laughed, simply pointing at the woman and letting his Rugrat horde take her down. The woman, unfortunately, was a retired kunoichi and the thumbtacks on her desk became impromptu weapons for her. "Fight through the pain." Harry yelled, seeing his team get stung with attacks. Apparating, he appeared behind her and slammed his open palm on her back, yelling "Stupefy." The woman crumpled and he ordered her to be tied up. Sasuke had left him behind and was running up the stairs to the next level with several of his admirers. Others followed just because they didn't want him to have all the glory. Okay, initiative, that's a good thing, not following orders is a bad thing, Harry said for the benefit of the kids standing guard over the woman. Leaving them there, he ran fast as he could up the stairs, knowing that while the lower level was deserted because everyone was at the mission's office, the Hokage's personal office would have more capable guards than the Chunin. He arrived just as Sasuke and a good dozen others were making a rush towards the one Jounin at the Sandame's door. Shit. Harry cursed, seeing the kunai in the man's hand, even though he could tell the Jounin was more confused than alarmed at the sight of a bunch of kids running at him. Incarcerous. Harry shouted from within the weapon-brandishing mob of students. Ropes shot like bullets at the man and got him in the leg, making him fall over. The wild-looking child with the puppy pounced on him, pinning an arm, while his puppy worried the Jounin's other arm. "What the hell are you brats doing?" the man hollered. A child in a white trench coat with a wide collar covering half his face stepped to the Jounin. "We are being tested for the Anbu Junior Division. Please do not resist, Jounin-san." He raised his hand at the downed soldier and a cloud of insects flew out of the sleeve to hover by the Jounin's face. "The fuck? There is no Anbu Junior Division, you idiots. You are in serious trouble," the man shouted, paying little heed to the instincts. Harry watched the trench coat kid in interest as he simply cocked his head to the side. "It's logical for you to attempt to sow dissent in our ranks. Such juvenile tactics will not work on us," he said. "Yeah," the blonde-haired Kunoichi who had questioned Harry at the academy agreed. "If there is no Anbu Junior Division, how do you explain him?" She jerked a thumb back at Harry. The man took in Harry's mask and uniform with a scowl. "That's not Kat-san, you fools." "Of course it isn't," Harry said stepping forward. "It's Kat-san Jr. Ichiha, continue with your mission. Trench coat boy and puppy kid, you keep him down. Blonde girl," Harry turned to who he suspected was the Queen Bee Kunoichi. "Guard the floor with your team." Sasuke was already through the door and climbing out of the window, while several boys and girls followed him to the roof. Harry took out the one flag he had and handed to the girls who had come through with him. They promptly stuck kunai in the ceiling and used it to hang the flag. Then started jumping and hugging each other like a bunch of schoolgirls at their victory. Harry rolled his eyes and looked in the corner of the Sandame's office where Severus Snape stood, invisible to all but him. "Where is it?" he whispered, while the others were preoccupied with celebrating. "Middle shelf, third scroll from the right, it is the one with information on Jinchuriki," the Salaman indicated. Harry went to it without delay and pulling out the thick scroll quickly cast a Jamino curse on it. He touched it to trigger the curse, making copies of the original. With another motion of his hand the Jamino curse was cancelled and Harry had placed the scroll back. "Okay, where's the other one?" Harry asked. Snape rolled his eyes and pointed the scroll right next to the one Harry had just copied. Harry simply scowled at him and grabbed the large scroll, unfurling it and kicking back on the Sandame's chair to lazily read it. Anbu-san, what now?" The pink-headed girl, Sakura, who Naruto had a crush on, peeked into the office. "Now we wait to be arrested," Harry said, not seeing the little girl's expression pale. He was looking over the forbidden jutsu summoning. Impure world resurrection. Mito Dono had told him her brother-in-law had created a technique which functions similarly to Harry's resurrection stone ability. She had offhandedly commented that Harry would need some excuse to explain away his knowledge of forbidden techniques she was teaching him. The comment had given Harry the idea for the cover he needed for his other purpose conveniently. It was only a few minutes later that sounds of Anbu body flickering into the tower erupted, followed by clouds of smoke or swirls of leaves. Harry winced behind the mask, seeing out in the hallway as the children were pinned on the ground within moments. And then the Sandame himself was standing in the office, flanked by his guards, his dark eyes alight with fury. He seemed to blink at the flag with the declaration "Kick-Ass Kitty-chan Division" for a moment and then sighed in frustration. "That's you, Naruto, isn't it?" "Haha." Harry leaped on the desk. "How do you like my audition for Anbu, old man? Now you can put me on Kitty-chan's team. I even learned awesome jutsu while I waited for your cripple ass to get here." He pointed proudly to the scroll of forbidden jutsu lying open. "Naruto." The blonde girl shouted from under an Anbu's foot in half rage and half disbelief. "I'm going to kill you." Before the Sandame could respond to Naruto or the most recent death threat against him, the real cat appeared at his side. "Tower is secured, Hokage-sama." "Seems like it's just Academy kid." She caught sight of a miniature boy version of herself, holding court on top of the Sandame's desk and a flag with her nickname on it. "My lord, what is happening here?" "Uzumaki is auditioning for a position on your squad, Kitty-chan," a masked silver-haired ninja on the Sandame's other side answered, his amusement obvious in his tone. Suddenly the mood in the room changed as an oppressive pressure appeared in the form of the Hokage's anger, manifesting in killing intent. Harry cringed but realized he knew he was in for a penny, in for a pound. Bakashi, the Sandame said in a rage-suppressed whisper. Get him out of my sight before I do something permanently debilitating to him. Yes sir. The silver-haired ninja closed a space between Harry and himself faster than Harry could follow. The next thing he knew he was tucked under the man's arm, who in turn was jumping out of the window and away. Scene break. Harry was serving the 15th hour of his punishment to clean the sewers while being suspended from the academy for a week. Slime covered the walls, and the stench felt like it was covering him like a layer of sweat. He pushed the mop without complaint, waiting till the genin supervising his punishment dozed off so he could use magic. Luckily he was far away that Harry could hold a conversation with his unseen visitor. The red-haired woman looked distinctly out of place in her expensive lavender kimono. The slight frown under the diamond mark on her forehead was the only indication that she found the surroundings unpleasant. So, my lord, am I to assume that you trust me? Now that you have verified what I have told you by breaking into Sarutobi's office. Harry smiled. Don't be upset, Mito Dono. I also established a cover for what you're teaching me. The woman was not mollified. Not all I am teaching you is recorded in the scroll of forbidden techniques. Doesn't matter, if the old man asks me I can tell him you trained me. He shrugged, steadily mopping the walkways bordering the sewer. I thought you wished to keep your status as master of death secret. She frowned. I do, but he doesn't need to know that. If push comes to shove, I'll just tell him I played around with your brother-in-law's resurrection technique, which is listed in the forbidden scroll, by the way. Harry winked at her happily. She only narrowed her eyes at him, seeming to blush in anger. You have thought of everything, have you? Harry waved dismissively. I have access to some very talented experts in subterfuge. His thoughts went to Dumbledore and Snape, who had advised him in creating his plan. I wish you had trusted me, Mito Dono reproached. Harry paused and caught her eyes in his own. I know I can command you to be completely honest with me, but I like the idea of you being loyal to me without being forced. But I needed to know for sure, so my advisors and I came up with this plan to kill two birds with one stone. I trust you implicitly, and I no longer need to hide some of the forbidden jutsus you're teaching me. The woman matched his gaze for a long moment before giving a bow. Your decision was wise. I am glad I have your trust. Please consult me in the future before committing capital offenses against Konoha. Harry laughed. Hey, all's well that ends well. She graced him with a flat look. Yet you are here in the sewers and will be for a whole week. Harry's shoulders slumped, feeling thoroughly deflated by his ancestor. Chapter 5. Harry's arms were tired, his emotions frayed, and he stank. He really could have gone back to his apartment to shower, but then he wouldn't have been enjoying petty revenge on the Hokage and his staff as he stood in the mission's office smelling like literally shit. The Chunin were covering their noses none too discreetly, the Genin teams coming in with their Jounin instructors were giving him a wide berth and shooting him disgusted looks. Naruto the Sandame called, watching the boy from shadowed eyes under the hat of his office. Have you finished with the Aburum clan? Sure thing, Gramps. I shoveled shit in the sewers for a few days, then shoveled shit for the Nara clan's deer, and I just got back shoveling bug shit for the Aburum clan. He put on a deeply thoughtful look. Oh no, I don't think there's any more shit in the village left to shovel, unless you count the brains of the person who came up with this punishment for me. He smiled dazzlingly, hearing and enjoying the shocked comments at his language. The old Hokage sighed deeply. The punishment is meant to teach you something, Naruto. Oh, no worries there, old man. I learned lots at the Aburum clan. Shino's dad told me all about the mating habits of his bugs. Did you know when Shino's mom and dad want to get it on they have to convince their colonies to go along with it? Apparently the queen bugs can be really frigid, so foreplay is all about warming up the creepers in their bodies and… Enough. A Chunin assisting the Hokage slammed his palm on the desk. We don't need to hear this. Hey. Show some respect. If I had to sit there cleaning bug shit and learn my classmates' parents' mating habits and be tormented emotionally, then you have to as well. Harry glared at the man, secretly loving the utterly scandalized look on the Sandame's face. Now, as I was saying. Once the pillow talk portion is over, they can get down and do the dirty, and there's this thing Shino's mom does that just drives Shino's dad's bugs crazy. She sends her colonies in his body for some non-consensual dominance, sex with Shino's dad's bugs, whether they like it or not. This is a total no-no, but Shino's mom is kinky like that. Then he said a little conspiratorially, which makes me really worried because Shino's big sister's bugs were all over me and I didn't know how to say that I didn't want her because I was afraid her bugs would rape me, seeing her mother's tendencies. Are you alright, old man? Harry asked in mock sincerity. There was utter silence in the mission's office and the faces of everyone were etched in horror. Harry heard a retching sound and turned to see a girl on a Genin team being sick in the corner. Sweet God, someone cut his tongue out or cut my ears off, the Hokage gasped. "It's your fault for sending me to a bunch of sex-obsessed bug freaks, old man," Harry protested. The Sandaime held up one hand to stall any more words that would come out of the insane child and with his other held his head. "Naruto, just go to the Inyazuka clan's vet clinic, they need you to clean out the kennels." Harry put up a victory sign. "Wonderful. I'm off to shovel dog shit. Maybe this time I won't learn anything about my classmates' parents' ex-lives. But if I do, I'll make sure to share." The Sandaime started coughing. "No, Naruto, I think this will be your last punishment exercise. Once you're done, please just stay away. I don't want you to share anything." "Oh, but, old man. I still have 2 days left of my suspension," Harry said. "I will excuse it. I think you've learned from your punishments," the Sandaime said, making shooing motions. "Learned too much," he said sotto voce when the boy was out of sight. "Even reprimanding the brat will cost me my sanity." Scene break. Harry walked out of the office rolling his eyes. He hoped what he had said never got back to the Aburum clan, he didn't fancy being eaten alive by insects. He was making his way to the vet clinic when a stream of memories erupted in his mind. His muscles seemed to tense all at the same time as muscle memory and experience translated over from his dispersed clones. Stumbling a little at his body screaming for food to deal with the extreme changes, he changed direction to go home first. Finding an alley to duck into out of sight, he disapparated, practically falling into the shower stall. It was all he could do to not pass out under the hot shower as he thought on the memories of the dispersed clones. Midoriya was teaching his clones Uzumaki's clan's taijutsu style called the whirlpool dance. With movements resembling the circular patterns of a whirlpool, designed to grind down an enemy from all sides without ever meeting him in a straight line, it was truly devastating. And this was all before the next form of the style where Harry was to generate chakra in his body and release it with his hits, creating a virtual maelstrom of limbs and raw chakra. His enthusiasm meant that he had dedicated a veritable army of clones to train with Midoriya on the surface of the lake, far outside the main village. Harry smiled under the shower, walking on water still hadn't lost its novelty and charm. And, now with Midoriya instructing his clone army to train on the surface of the lake as all good Uzumaki shinobi should, he was getting to enjoy the new skill to the utmost. But before he could send out more clones to where Midoriya was probably waiting impatiently, he had to get food inside him. He stepped out of the bathroom to see his apartment packed with his clones, covering every surface and reading from books or doing math problems. Harry wondered how much better he could have handled his first life if only he had the shadow clone jutsu. Brainwork was taxing on the body too, and once the ones in his apartment dispersed his hunger would only ratchet up. With that in mind, Harry dressed in fresh clothes and headed to Ichiraku's for ramen bowls in the double digits. Scene break. While the Nara clan lived on sprawling land to accommodate its deer and their love for open space, and the Aburum clan lived in closely grouped houses, the Inyazuka clan's neighborhood matched what Harry was used to in his previous life. There was nothing there, other than the preponderance for dogs, that made it any different than anywhere suburbia. Most of the Inyazuka he saw as he entered their neighborhood grinned and winked at him. Someone even shouted to ask if he could join Harry's Anbu squad and then roared in laughter. For his part, Harry smiled back at the clan members and waved cheerily to the man mocking him. He got the distinct impression that they were simply amused by him and didn't hold him in contempt like most of the village. It was with a happy heart then that he entered the vet clinic compound. Luckily, before he could even report to whoever was in charge he came upon the kennels. Looking right and left to see if any Inyazuka was present, he was happy to find he was alone. He closed the fence door behind him and with a wave of his hand, opened the locks on all the kennels at once. "Alright, puppies, out you go, hurry up. Playtime." He waved to dogs ranging from little ankle-biting puppies to dogs that he was stunned to find came up to his shoulders. Apparently they understood him just fine and were too happy to leave the kennel. Happy for the opportunity, Harry went from cage to cage, waving his hand whispering the vanishing spell. Within a few short minutes the Inyazuka clan's kennels were spotless. Well, that's that. Now I can go and get some rest. Unfortunately, his plan was halted when the puppies he had let out didn't want to go back to the kennels. Instead they wanted to play, and having a dozen puppies running around his feet and wrestling with each other was too much fun for Harry's younger side not to give in to. Soon he was chasing the puppies or running from them, even rolling on the ground to let them wrestle him down. The bigger dogs were more sedate and seemed to have taken up watch to make sure that no one got hurt while the human pup roughhoused. After having his fill of wrestling with the puppies, Harry ushered them back into their kennels. It was time to go look for the chunin responsible for the clinic and report that his chore was done. He entered the swinging doors to a whitewashed hall, sounds of yips and barking echoed in the hall. They guided Harry to a room that looked exactly like any human hospital, with a stiff bed and neutral colored walls, with the smell of disinfectant. All this Harry was only peripherally aware of, since he was more focused on the larger than human-sized white dog lying on the bed, licking the tiniest puppy he had ever seen. The large dog seemed to be comforting the pup who was yipping and whining. Flecks of blood marred the white fur around the pup's mouth. Its eyes were shut and its pink paws looked so soft Harry wondered if they could even support the tiny thing's weight. He guessed the puppy was newborn and in considerable pain. When he walked closer the large dog, which he guessed was the pup's mother, fixed him with a stare. Having handled more than his share of magical creatures, Harry tried to exude confidence and goodwill while bowing to the beast. The dog cocked its head to its side in a curious gesture. Harry took that as a good sign and approached the bed without any hesitation. The pup was coughing pitifully and some instinct told Harry that it was dying. He felt himself drawn to that knowledge, he could almost see where death would strike the little being. "Hush, it's going to be okay," Harry said, lost in the hypnotism of his own feelings, as he stroked the pup's neck with just his forefinger. "She's dying," he heard a gravely voice. Startled out of his reverie, Harry looked at the large dog, stunned. Excuse me, did you just say something?" He watched the dog's slightly open mouth carefully and especially the black lips curling back from its fangs. "I said, my daughter is dying. It is not going to be okay," the dog said. Harry looked away from the dog to the puppy he was petting to give himself a moment to get over being spoken to by an animal. It was not something entirely new to him, but a dog had never had a chat with him before. "I wouldn't give up yet," Harry said, again, sensing where death was preparing to strike the puppy. Not surprisingly it was a place in its lungs. "What would a human pup like you know?" the dog demanded caustically. Harry was too lost to respond to its words or the anger in them. His finger had, as if by its own accord, come to rest above the skin and flesh of the spot where he felt the puppy's death was growing. Following his body's instincts, Harry scooped the puppy into the palm of his hand. He rested his hand over the puppy's chest, not hearing the very threatening growl escape the mother. "Episky," Harry intoned in an otherworldly voice. His hands glowed green, and Harry felt the puppy's death grow smaller and smaller till it disappeared altogether. The puppy yipped happily and Harry laughed softly. When he came out of that strange place he found two kunai at his throat. His eyes widened in shock when he saw a woman in Jounin uniform, with wild black hair and red markings around her eyes and face, flanked by a younger girl who could have been a gentler-looking version of her, holding the weapons to him. "What are you doing?" the older woman bit out. "Ladies, let's calm down, I was just petting the puppy." Harry put the little animal back on the hospital bed, being careful that the movement didn't press the kunai any closer to his throat. Hana," the dog on the bed growled. "The smell of death has left my daughter." The women dropped the kunai to their sides, and the younger of them moved to examine the little puppy. While the older fixed Harry with a look made even more intimidating by her vertical slit pupils. "You healed the pup, she was terminal. What was that jutsu?" Harry opened and shut his mouth, searching for an answer to give her. The woman had assumed that he had used some sort of ninjutsu, which was a good thing, but beyond that he didn't really know enough about how ninjutsu worked to lie well. I don't know," he said finally, when it looked like the older woman was going to get physical. "I just held it and I could feel where it was hurt and just wanted to help her." "Hana?" the older woman asked, not taking her eyes away from the blonde kid in front of her. "I don't get it. We couldn't heal her. She was going to die for sure. I can't figure out what he did, but her lungs are completely healthy." The younger girl looked over her shoulder to smile. "She's going to live." Harry was forced to look away from who he now knew was Tsum when the bed made a creak as the large canine jumped off of it and came around to him. As prepared as he thought he was for the dog's eyes, Harry was still a little intimidated when the snow-white dog came literally face to face. Reminding himself that Fluffy had been much bigger and far more ferocious, Harry calmed a little. Don't eat him, Sayori," Hana said with a nervous laugh. Just then the white dog opened its mouth and Harry stumbled back over his feet trying to get away. Sadly his way was blocked by Tsum and Harry got a face full of slobber as Sayori showered him with affection. Hearing Tsum laugh, Harry gave in to the treatment and brought his hands up to rub Sayori's great neck. "You're not so scary, are you, Sayori?" "Of course nothing as gorgeous as you could be anything but nice," he said, enjoying the feeling of the huge dog's fur. Sayori made a chuffing noise which Harry interpreted as laughter. "Such a flatterer. Tsum, you should tell Kuromeru I've found a better mate than him," Sayori said, making Harry's blood run cold. Tsum rolled her eyes. "For the last time, I am not getting caught between your domestic disputes. Although, I have to say, this little brat is a good catch. Are you going to claim him before anyone else can?" Tsum asked, enjoying the wide-eyed panic she saw in the kid. No," Harry said, nervously breaking into the conversation. "Did Sayori just hit on me and did you just approve?" he asked, looking at Tsum. Tsum shrugged. "You saved Sayori's daughter. Who am I to stand in the way of her showing her appreciation?" Harry racked his memories for any knowledge of Inuzuka clan's inclination or not toward bestiality, but he could find nothing. Thinking fast he said, I'm a minor. I don't think I'm really prepared for this, I mean, emotionally, you understand. I mean, I'm not saying you're not beautiful, and I don't want to, you know, but really, it's just so sudden, and really, he couldn't go on as laughter erupted around him. Harry felt his face burn in embarrassment when his stuttering excuses were interrupted by Hana's laughter. The young girl had buried her face in Tsume's shoulders, and tears rolled down her face in mirth. Tsume was grinning and chuckling while Sayori was chuffing again. That was really mean, Harry said, rolling eyes at himself for his gullibility. Come on, kid, let me get you some food. I think I will ask Hokage-sama to give you a permanent E-rank mission to come help out Hana at the clinic. Maybe we can develop that healing instinct of yours. Good job, Uzumaki, Tsume said, putting a hand on his back and leading him out of the room. Wait. Hana waved. Is this Uzumaki Naruto? The one who led Kiba in the attack on Hokage Tower? She asked with mirth still in her eyes. Tsume hit Harry up the head gently. Yeah, this is the brat. Sorry, Harry said, wondering if the kid with the puppy on the infiltration mission was related to them. Hana smirked. My brother is looking for you, pay you back for that. Mom just about killed him. The woman with the vertical slit pupils took Harry by the shoulder and guided him to a kitchenette in what looked like the clinic's break room. Don't worry about Kiba. I wasn't too harsh with him. Hell, I was proud he worked well enough with others to pull that stunt with you. Harry smiled, beginning to like the woman. Thanks, Tsume-chan, he said, using Naruto's winsome smile and a very familiar honorific for the woman. In turn she bared her teeth in a feral smile. But, you will be making it up to me for almost getting my son skewered by an Anbu's sword. So let's see, these are the nights Hana works at the clinic, the woman trailed off, running her finger across the calendar in the break room with names slotted in for shifts. Harry just sighed and prepared to accept the consequences. Scene break. Chapter 6. Harry's heart thudded in his chest with anticipation and anxiety as he rounded the corner of yet another alley. He was dressed in his usual black muscle t-shirt with orange pants and an orange jacket, but over them, he had chosen a black cloak with a hood to be less noticeable. The cloak was a nice throwback to his typical wardrobe from his first life, and he couldn't help but feel a little mismatched when he had put on the ensemble. This awkwardness was lost in the moment, however, as he rushed to the place Mito Dono had spoken to him about. He was going to meet the last living relative. The town he had apparated into was a sleepy thoroughfare to Fire Country. Merchants and travelers simply stopped in town to rest and replenish before heading to more lucrative venues further in the country. The townspeople subsisted on the business these travelers brought in. Sun had set long ago and the night was old, only some bars and whore dens still bustled with noise. Mito Dono had begged Harry to go to one of these bars and watch out for her granddaughter. Dust rose as Harry came to a running stop by a bar with its name buried under grime of many years. It wasn't the sort of place he would ever choose to stop by, so he wondered why Mito Dono's granddaughter would cool her heels there. It certainly did not seem to be the place for a woman of class to be in. Are you sure this is it, Mito Dono? He whispered, making sure no one was on the dusky street as he spoke to the apparition next to him. The regal woman inclined her head, her hair falling forward a little, with her face etched in an expression of disgust and sadness. Yes, my little son is here. And the bounty hunters you saw? He asked while finding a shadowed doorway to melt into across the street. As an additional precaution he patted himself on the head and cast the disillusionment charm. The feeling of an egg breaking on his head came over him and he was satisfied knowing yet another spell worked for him. Now if only transfiguration would work as easily. Last I saw them they had entered the bar behind her. They will not attack her there. I am afraid she has cultivated a reputation for being a heavy drinker. They will wait till she is pissing drunk and maybe even passed out before making their move. Mito Dono scowled. Her language surprised Harry, the woman had never spoken to him in anything but the most cultured manner. Not very brave are they? These bounty hunters, I mean, Harry said. Mito Dono smiled wryly. My lord, my little son doesn't only have a reputation for drinking and gambling. She is an S-class kunoichi, at the height of her power there was not a warrior who could match her physical strength. Oh. Harry fixed his eyes on the door, waiting for little son. So that's why they would wait till she is too drunk to fight. No, Mito Dono said. Even drunk she is deadly, in fact, deadlier, because she wouldn't hold back. Instead they would wait to see if she passes out. Sadly they have chosen a good day to hunt her. She always drinks herself into a stupor this day. Harry was frowning. If she is such an awesome kunoichi, she should know better than to make herself so vulnerable. Why does she drink so much this day? She lost my grandson, Nawaki, this day. He was the last thing she loved who had survived with her up to this day. When he passed the veil she felt she had nothing left, Mito Dono explained. Silence filled the space between them as both Harry and Mido were lost in their own thoughts. Half an hour passed and now the moon was high in the sky. The half curtain hanging over the bar's door shifted to the side and a woman stumbled out. "That's her," Mido said. Harry did not move from his spot, choosing to wait for the bounty hunters who were after her. Even though she was disheveled, the young woman was a vision bathed as she was in the waxing moonlight. Mussed blonde hair fell in two ponytails behind her, a lovely pale face slightly red from all the alcohol she had consumed, and a glint of moonlight betrayed the tear tracks marring her cheeks. Her body was hidden underneath a flowing green robe, but Harry imagined a kunoichi of her reputation must be physically fit even if he couldn't see it from his angle. "So this is the only person I can claim as family, huh?" Harry muttered. "Wish I was a few years older, she's gorgeous." Mido tutted in disapproval and motioned with her hand at the men who spilled out of the bar like shadows to follow her granddaughter. Harry nodded and began to follow. The bounty hunter party of 4, 3 men and a woman, were keeping their distance from the drunk woman. Harry could see that she was teetering on her high-heeled sandals. Any hope that he had that she would notice her hunters and show him some S-rank skills was dashed when she slumped against a wall and started using it to guide her. This led her straight into an alley, almost as if she wanted the hunters to have a crack at her. "That foolish child," Mido cursed by his side. "Naruto, I think this will be the best place to act. Be careful, these hunters are missing Nin, and low-level Nin would take her on." "Don't worry, I have the element of surprise," Harry said, waiting patiently till the last Nin rounded the corner to go into the alley. Following after them he found little Sun, passed out in the door sill of a shop's back entrance, and the Nins rushing her with weapons outstretched. "Shit." Harry cursed, seeing that he had taken too much time. He disapparated with a loud crack, giving himself away and appeared right in front of the blonde woman. He watched a Nin's thrust come at him with kunai outstretched. Almost in slow motion the kunai pierced his shoulder joint. Pain exploded and his hand wavered when he raised it in an instinctive warding gesture. "Expelliarmus," he shouted, sending the darkly clothed Nin flying back. The Nin slammed into the opposite wall, but even before he fell his comrade were upon Harry. Belatedly Harry noted that his disillusionment spell had fallen and he was in plain sight, holding his bloody shoulder. "Protego," he snapped, with his good arm outstretched. The milky white transparent shield came into being and deflected a hail of kunai and shuriken. The team of bounty hunters paused to take in the unfamiliar jutsu. 2 unexpected surprise had greeted them, that Tsunade had a little boy for a bodyguard and 2 that he could perform unknown jutsu, but they weren't daunted. The shield seemed to be only covering them from one angle. With an unspoken message, the kunoichi amongst them ran up the opposite wall, then jumped across so that she was directly above the boy and the legendary Nin whose head they were there to take. The kunoichi made hand signs then opened her mouth with a shout and threw out a fireball. She watched the blonde kid's eyes widen at the attack that had come from above. She smiled in satisfaction when they disappeared in the flames, expecting that she had immolated them. But when the fire cleared she was stunned to see another shield aimed above at her. The boy had 2 jutsus running simultaneously, held by each hand. My, aren't you a little prodigy? But I can see your arm shaking from that wound, brat. How long can you keep this up?" She didn't expect him to laugh. "Oh this?" he asked, looking at his blood-soaked shoulder. "This just tickles, stupefy." A red bolt of lightning shot at her. She was surprised, but instinct took over and like the wind she flew off the wall, the bolt missing her by a hairbreadth. "Let him have it, boys," she commanded as she flipped and landed back on the alley ground. The other hunters had surrounded the pair and a hail of projectile and jutsus were hurled at the child. They did not hear the telltale crack of apparition or sense him appear at the mouth of the alley with Tsunade's unconscious form. But they did hear when he yelled, "Kage Bushin no Jutsu," and a veritable army of yellow-haired boys in black cloaks fell upon them. Shouts of Reducto Inflamer filled the alley. Smiling grimly, Harry dragged Tsunade into the street, preparing himself to disapparate with her. It was a little difficult because the kunai that had hit him was lodged right in the shoulder joint, causing pain with every movement. "Hand over the bitch, brat, you can't get out of this with a few fancy jutsus," a voice called out. Harry looked up to find the roofs of the buildings around him, hosting many more bounty hunters than the 4 he had engaged. "Tsunade-sama," another voice screamed. Harry saw a young woman rapidly approaching him in that body flicker technique he had seen ninjas use. "She is Sun's apprentice. My lord, I suggest you escape with both of them. As you are, you cannot fight and protect her at the same time," Mido said, appearing in Harry's vision. "Damn it, it's the bitch's servant girl. Take care of her," the man on the roof ordered. Harry had one hand firmly on Tsunade's shoulder and he reached out with the other to the woman who had just stopped to cover both him and her master. As Harry grabbed the back of the woman's arm, he felt multitude of sharp pains erupt on his back. The Nins in the alley who had escaped his shadow clones had attacked his open back. Brutally pushing away the pain, Harry disapparated with both women back to Konoha to his apartment. Scene break. Harry was lying on his stomach in his apartment with his shirt off. Shizune, as he learned the name of the young woman who had come to his aid, was healing his back. His shadow clone was in the kitchen brewing a couple of potions, having already made sure that the blonde woman was resting peacefully in his bedroom. "Are you sure this doesn't hurt?" the brunette woman asked him for what felt like the umpteenth time. Harry sighed. "Of course it hurts," he admitted finally. "Well, you are very brave, you haven't complained yet," she said, stitching the cuts. "Trust me, I have felt much worse. And are you sure I can't convince you to stop stitching up these wounds? I swear they will heal fast," Harry groused. "You are not a medic, Nin," she said repressively. Harry sighed and let it go. At least she was far gentler than Madame Pomfrey. He had honestly been happy for the woman's conversation because it distracted him from his terrible performance in the rescue. He underestimated how fast ninjas could move and how little they would be thrown off by his magic. Sure, they had been surprised by it, but just as soon they had moved to circumvent it. And, somehow, his reaction time had been dulled. In some ways he just wasn't fully comfortable with his shortened height and reach, not to mention the experience of shooting out spells from his hands when instinct told him to make this or that twirling motion before casting magic. "I need to get better," he said to himself. "Have to get comfortable with these new powers." "Indeed you do, my lord. That said, you performed admirably for an academy student. Though your performance left much to be desired when one considers you are the master of death," Mito Dono teased. Harry turned his head to shoot the older and dead woman a glare where she was kneeling on Shizune's opposite side. Are you talking about the jutsu you used to bring us here, wherever this is?" Shizune asked. "Yeah," Harry said simply. "Are you done yet?" Shizune patted his head as if he was a pet. "Just be patient, I am making sure the scars are thin. The better I sew the wounds, the better they will look. It's the least I can do for protecting Tsunade-sama." "Thanks," Harry said, feeling drowsy. "So, where are we?" "Your twin wouldn't say," she asked, putting bandages over the wounds. The twin chuckled in the kitchen. "I'm his shadow clone, Shizune-san." Harry felt the woman's hand stop their ministrations on his back. He guessed she was surprised. "Oi. Twin." Harry yelled. "Let's keep a lid on secrets, yeah?" "Sorry, boss. Pepper up is almost done, though," the clone called back. Shizune helped Harry sit up even though his back and shoulder protested the movement. Finally Harry was able to get a good look at her. She seemed to be in her late 20s, long bangs fell into her black eyes, making them harder to read. Her expression was open and kind, however, and Harry instinctively wanted to trust the woman. "It's not normal for someone your age to be able to do the shadow clone technique," she started. Harry shrugged and regretted right after when it sent a shooting pain through his body. "I have a lot of chakra, it helps me break it down and learn to control." As he said this, he raised his hand to his shoulder, the one place he could reach, and cast the one healing spell he knew. He sighed in relief, feeling the muscles and skin knit back as if there had never been a wound. "Wow, you know healing jutsu as well. Who are you?" Shizune asked, now kneeling forward and removing the bandage on his shoulder to check out the wound. "Damn it, I need to get rid of the stitches now." She took out more tools from her medic bag and began working, not bothered by how close she was to Harry's personal space. "My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I don't know if that means anything to you, but I am from the same clan as your master's grandmother," he said. "Oh, and what were you doing out so late at night where you just happened to run into Tsunade-sama?" she asked with a little frown of suspicion, even as she focused on the shoulder wound. "Someone told me that she was in trouble, and seeing as she's the only family connection I have left, I came to help," Harry said. "Well, I am glad that you did. Tsunade-sama gave me the slip and went drinking by herself. I was very worried," she shared, sitting back on her heels, having finished with the healed wound. "You're not from Konoha, are you? The only Uzumaki of your age I know is there." Harry laughed. "Shizune-san, you are in Konoha right now. And though I would love to know how you know of me, I have only 2 hours left before I have to be up to go to the academy. So I am going to pass out now. When little Tsun wakes up, give her the drink my clone just made, there's enough there for all of us. Good night." And with that Harry crawled over to the couch to sprawl on it and fall dead asleep. Shizune whipped around to the clone to start questioning him, but the blonde copy smiled and dispelled. Now in disbelief, Shizune walked out to the patio to watch her home village in the light of early dawn. "How is this possible?" she directed to the world. Scene break. When Harry woke up, Shizune was nowhere in sight. He dragged himself to the kitchen and knocked back the glass of pepper-up potion waiting for him. It gave him instant energy to start his day. More clear-headed now, he wondered if bringing Shizune and Tsunade all the way back to the village hidden in the leaves had been a good idea at all. Shizune now knew of his apparition ability, which really shouldn't get out, but he was loath to obliviate her, not knowing how the Elder Wand would overcharge the delicate spell. He really did not need an amnesiac on his hands. "Good morning," a voice startled him. Harry jumped in the air and turned to the source. "Mito Dono, don't scare me like that. When will you call me grandmother again?" she asked with a playful frown. Harry sighed and went into the bathroom to shower. "It's too early to spar, grandmother." The apparition followed him into the bathroom, making Harry quickly close the curtain in front of the shower. "What the hell are you doing in here?" "We need to talk," she said. "I would like permission to speak to little son. "Fine, whatever, just get out of the bathroom," Harry yelled. He didn't see the smirk of satisfaction on the woman's face. "Have a good day at school, Naruto," she said and disappeared from the bathroom. Scene break. It was Harry's first day at the academy in full possession of his memories. The week of suspension was over and he found Naruto's enthusiasm infecting him. His younger self always saw these moments as opportunities to impress and befriend his peers. His loneliness was so apparent to Harry that it was painful. He wished someone from his peers had reached out to Naruto, to himself. Sometimes it was easier to deal with the loneliness of his second life by imagining he was two different people. But it was getting harder and harder to do. So he embraced Naruto's excitement and entered the classroom happily. "Please, stay seated, no need to stand on ceremony," he called out. An eraser came flying at him. Harry ducked easily and glared at the person throwing it. It was one of the history instructors. "No one was going to stand for you, Uzumaki. Get to your seat. After you fail this year at least you will get thrown out of the academy, you only get 3 tries." He pointed to the back of the classroom. "Missed you too." Harry stuck out a tongue and climbed the stairs in the aisle to get to the back bench. He waved to his new classmates as he walked by, noting the glares and smiles. The glares from the Queen Bee, Kunoichi and Sakura were the worst. Seeing Sakura made Harry's heart do a little flip-flop and despite himself his smile became goofier at the sight of his crush. "She's a kid, get a hold of yourself, you aren't a 10-year-old Naruto anymore," Harry yelled at himself. "But she's so cute and smart and kind and cute," another voice answered back. He wrenched his eyes away from the rage-filled green of Sakura's eyes and tripped into his seat. The instructor was already lecturing, pretending that the disruption at Naruto's entrance hadn't happened. Even though Harry had resolved to do better at the academy, he couldn't really take a man who hated him so obviously seriously. If it weren't the wounds itching on his back he would have sprawled over the desk, just like the kid next to him. Harry watched him in surprise. Was he actually asleep? As if in answer the boy turned his head, fixing him with a lazy stare. "So when do we find out if we made it in?" "Huh?" Harry looked confusedly at the boy with the high ponytail. "The test for admission into Anbu Junior Corps, Uzumaki-san," another boy asked. Harry recognized him as the one who had used a lot of insects in the attack on the tower. Shino was his name. Something he had learned from the boy's father after his job at the Aburam clan's neighborhood. Harry chuckled. "Come on guys, I was suspended for a week. You don't think it was real, do you?" "That does not follow logic," Shino said evenly. "Yeah, doesn't make a lot of sense," the half-dozing boy said. Harry raised a brow in question. "Really? Consider," Shino began, "that you led the attack at a time that the tower was least protected and disabled the only guards who were challenging with ease. Such knowledge of the tower's inner workings is not common. If you weren't truly an Anbu you would not know the best time to launch a direct attack on the tower." The lazing boy agreed. "Not to mention that all you got for taking on the freaking Hokage tower was a week-long suspension and none of us got any official flack. I mean, if you really were on an unsanctioned mission or prank, like most of these idiots think you were, you would be executed. How could they allow someone to break into the Hokage's own office and then let him off with a slap on the wrist like you were?" Harry had started smiling in glee at some point and could not stop. "Hey, what's your name?" "Me? I'm Nara Shikamaru and Bug Boy is Aburam Shino," he said. "Nice to meet you both. So now tell me, what if the Sandame simply has a soft heart and decided that killing a 10-year-old pranking idiot was too much?" he asked. Shino nodded, half his face hidden behind the wide-collared jacket he wore. "That may explain why your punishment was not severe, though it would be logical to make an example of you. And that still doesn't explain how you knew the best time to hit the Hokage tower." Shikamaru smiled. "My old man tried the same arguments with me, man. They didn't work on me or my mother. She thinks the same thing that I do, that your little speech when we got caught and your punishment was just an act to test us." "Test you?" Harry asked in utter amusement. "To see if we could see past the deception. To be an Anbu one must have a sharp mind as well as the physical ability you already tested when we infiltrated the Hokage tower successfully," Shino explained. "So, you see, we're not fooled. We can see the second depth, especially when it's so obvious," the Nara boy smirked. Harry just chuckled, it wasn't an unreasonable conclusion given what they knew of him. How could they know that the Sandane was his grandfather in everything but blood? So anyone other than you two figure it out. Shikamaru shrugged. I don't know, but Hinata has been looking over here since you got in. She isn't glaring, so I think she suspects something is up. At his words, the girl who was just sitting a little ahead and to the side of them ducked her head and looked away, obviously hearing what Shikamaru had said. I heard that Hinata-san's father was called in to help the two Chunin she took down during the attack. The Hokage even complimented the power she showed, Shino said. It was quite surprising, Hinata-san is usually very gentle and shy, but that day she seemed driven. You know, Harry said. You don't talk like a 10-year-old, Shino. He's an Abiram, enough said, Shikamaru said. Shino only shrugged. Harry looked at the dark-haired girl they were talking about. Naruto's impression of her was that she was dark and weird. Not unreasonable considering he had only seen her hiding behind telephone poles, stalking him, or ducking her head, hiding behind her dark hair. The most noticeable thing about her were her wide eyes, distinctive of the Hyuga clan. Bluish-black hair cut short with two long strands in the front framed her face. Looking at her with greater care than Naruto had, Harry realized that she wasn't really weird, she was simply interested in him. And when he pondered why that may be, he remembered a moment from his childhood when he had protected her from bullies. Although he had gotten beaten up, he had turned their attention from her to himself. He smiled thinking maybe the little girl was too shy to make friends with him like she seemed to want to. He decided that he would take that step for her. Yo, lover boy, Shikamaru called, pulling Harry out of his thoughts. When he turned back to the boys they were both laughing at him. So when do we find out? Before Harry could answer, Shino asked, Shikamaru, you seem very interested in becoming an Anbu Jr. I would think it would be too much effort for you. Wouldn't it be troublesome? The Abiram chuckled, but Harry missed the inside joke. Are you kidding? Shikamaru asked. I want one of those masks. Just think, I could go to sleep wearing one and no one would know and bother me. Maybe even my mother would leave me alone. Ah, that explains everything, Shino said. Harry gave the lazy boy an incredulous look. You just want the mask so you can take a nap and look like you're paying attention. Yup, the Nara said without any shame. By the way, there's blood seeping through the back of your jacket. Are you okay? Damn, Harry cursed and tried to look over his shoulder. The wounds must have opened up when I took a shower this morning and put on fresh clothes. Wounds? Shino asked. How did you get them? Harry searched for an answer that wasn't I fell down the stairs before, smiled conspiratorially and saying, since you two figured out so much already, I guess there's no harm in saying I got them on a mission to extract two Kunoichi. Don't tell anyone though. Both young boys nodded seriously and Shikamaru said, we have to jutsu practice next. I will spar with you. That way you can avoid revealing your injuries and we can take it easy. Just the way I like it. I have an extra jacket in my locker, you should wear it to hide the blood, Shino said. Thanks, guys, Harry said sincerely. This was the first time he had made friends his own age. It was too bad there wasn't really a junior Anbu division, but maybe there could be. Scene break. Lunch break found Harry with a light green jacket with a high upturned collar. Harry had tried again and again to turn down the collar, but it looked like the tall Abiram boy had it starched. So he simply unzipped the front to make sure half his face wasn't hidden. For his next meeting he wanted to be as approachable as possible. Swinging his sandwich in one hand he looked around and found Hyuga Hinata sitting by herself under a tree. Hi. Can I join you? He asked, walking up to the girl. When she blushed a deep red and stammered something, Harry guessed it was a yes and plopped down. Nah, I don't know if you remember me, but we met once a long time ago. Hinata waved her hands frantically. No, I remember you, Uzumaki-san, she said, apparently afraid that she'd already given offense. Great, Harry said. So would you like to be friends? The girl just looked at him wide-eyed, which looked all the more dramatic because her eyes were all white, but her face blushed an even deeper red than before. Hey, it's okay, Harry said. I won't bite. Just nod your head if you don't mind having me as a friend. The girl did nod and with gusto. Yes. Harry pumped his fist. I knew I liked you for a reason. This, apparently, was a terrible thing to say, because the girl fainted. The quick enervate charm and a drink of water later had the girl awake and more in control of herself. I'm sorry, Uzumaki-san. We're friends now, Hinata-chan, you don't have to be sorry for needing a little help and you shouldn't call me Uzumaki-san anymore, it makes me feel like we're not friends, Harry said with a smile, so that the girl didn't feel like she was insulting him. Okay, Naruto-kun. She smiled for the first time and it made her otherwise plain face look adorable. So, Harry said, taking a bite of his sandwich. I heard your father had to fix those chunins you took out in the attack. Hinata blushed and smiled. Father was very angry I followed you, but he complimented me for the first time. Really? Harry asked, hiding what he thought of her father only complimenting her once. He said that if I was going to be a fool and attack the tower, at least I did a good job. She giggled softly. Harry laughed along, but inside felt his heart go out to the girl for being happy with the backhanded compliment her father had given her. He began to understand why he had taken note of her. The girl was like Naruto, like his first self even, desperate for someone to acknowledge her. Like Naruto and like his other childhood, she let alone someone. Well then, we will just have to do other things Hyuga-sama will like. Ah no, are we going to attack the Hokage Tower again? She asked frightfully. Harry was amused. No, I think once was enough, but a couple of guys want to be in the Anbu Junior course still, and I was wondering if you wanted to be too. Maybe we could get together and have fun. She nodded her head making her framing strand sway. I would like that Naruto-kun. Will we also be trained by the Anbu? Aye, she trailed off and blushed. What is it? You can trust me, Harry said. My father was proud of me because I was strong. Aye, if the Anbu train us, he will. She stopped abruptly, hanging her head. Harry could see the tears in the corner of her eyes. The girl really needed her father to love her. Anada-chan, Harry said, channeling his older side. I think you are very brave and strong already, and I think you're smart enough to know I was playing with the whole Anbu thing. Aye, it's okay, I don't mind playing, she said quickly, but did not raise her head. But, Harry went on as if she hadn't said anything. I have a few friends who train me and if you want you could train with me, because I want to become strong too. The girl looked up sharply and said an emphatic, hi. Harry smiled. It settled then. Oh, and don't tell Shikamaru or Shino, they think Anbu Juniors are real. He rolled her eyes. Hinata giggled softly. I believed them when they talked about it last week. I thought Anbu Jr. was real too. Well, it will be our little secret. Harry winked at her. The real open smile on Hinata's face told him that she was very happy having a secret with him. For the first time since he had woken up in this new world, Harry felt like himself. He had saved someone, even if it was just from being alone. Scene break. Harry stood in a grove of trees by the academy, with the apparition of Severus Snape next to him. He was looking out of the grove to make sure no one was following him before casting the privacy charms. So, what's up? Snape inclined his head a little in greeting. Our plan to use your prank infiltration of the Hokage Tower to explain away your new skills has had an unexpected but useful side effect. You were essentially the talk of the town afterwards. I learned much. All good I hope, Harry said with a wry smile. The expression on Snape's face showed that he shared Harry's humor. Some good, some bad. You will be pleased to know that your golden boy status extends all realms of reality and yet again the man in charge is willing to grant you latitude. Harry sighed with relief. Saratobi Hiruzen's motivations were a big concern for him. He was going to be deeply disappointed if the kindly grandfather role the man played in his life was just an act to control him. Why, Snape, you almost didn't sound resentful giving me that news. Snape sneered for a moment before his face fell to a blank haunted look. Death changed much, he said. Harry felt bad for inadvertently reminding Snape of whatever horrors he had suffered in the afterlife. What else? You said there was bad. Yes, the major clan heads, some of whose compounds you have visited over the last few days, were not amused. In fact some were quite disturbed. There is a superstition in this culture that foxes are magical and are inclined to play tricks on humans. Seeing as you hold a demon fox, the majority of people I have spied on believe that the fox is acting through you, or you're conforming to the fox, and that your childish pranks are just an indication that you cannot be trusted. Snape shrugged. Fear often makes fools of even wise men, as does hate unfortunately, we know that too well. I suppose I should find out if there really are magical foxes. Maybe there is a way to prove to them I am not a fox, Harry said. There's more. The Hokage mentioned this in private to someone who he trusts that he was glad none of the clan heads knew about your special henge technique. Apparently you named it the sexy technique. Snape gave him one of his judgmental raised eyebrow looks. Harry frowned at the man. Of course I didn't. Oh wait, yeah I did. Harry smacked his head. It's some transformation technique Naruto modified to look like an attractive female version of himself. Understandable, Snape said in a manner that conveyed it was anything but. It would seem whatever modification Naruto performed changed the very nature of the technique to become a true transformation. Folklore about magical foxes speaks of them transforming into humans, especially attractive women, to lead men astray. Oh that's just great. Harry exclaimed angrily. So if they ever found out about it, they would think this is just another example of the fox demon acting out. That was precisely the Hokage's concern and, like him, I am glad no one knows the detail of your sexy technique, Snape said. Please don't ever use the word sexy in my presence. It just sounds so wrong coming from you. Harry had his face in his hands. To grow up, my lord, Snape responded evenly. A certain Hyuga Hiashi was particularly adamant that you needed to be exiled or removed from regular social contact with the village. He blamed you for leading his daughter astray into a potential fatal situation. The Hokage lost some political capital with the man when he refused to budge, which is a significant piece of news when you realize that currently this Hyuga clan is the foremost clan in the village. Barry's frown had deepened as Snape explained. I am not much a fan of that man already. I've met with his daughter. He treats her like crap. I need you to look into her as well. I'll need more manpower. There are quite a few ghosts here I could recruit with your authority of course, Snape said, as if he enjoyed the words coming out of his mouth. Yes, please, but Snape, they will be utterly loyal to me, otherwise I will find a way to make them miserable even if they are dead. He turned his head to look directly at Snape's dark eyes. And it will be your responsibility to make sure they don't betray me. It will be done, Millard, Snape said, losing the familiar tone he had been using so far. Good. Harry nodded. His daughter's name is Hinata. I need to know what goes on with her if I am to help her. Now, what else did you learn? Now we come to something that I wish to investigate deeply. Sarutobi met with several elderly retired ninja who are on an advisory council. They advocated strongly that you need to be trained as Jinchuriki of other villages are, as a weapon, and that your emotional outbursts which result in tricks on the village need to be stamped out with psychological training, Snape said, a frown on his face. They were especially worried about the fact that you read the Forbidden Scroll and spoke about handing you over to some man named Danzo who could give you proper conditioning. How did the Hokage react to this? Harry asked. He shot them down, but the arguments were long and again his position with the two council ninja was weakened. With my experience I can tell that there are machinations already in place working against your beloved grandfather and that this Danzo is both a threat to him and you. Snape gave him a measured stare. The two council ninja I would count as clear enemies. They are interested in simply using you or killing you if you get out of hand, and Danzo is the vehicle which would make this happen. Given this, there is only one choice open to you. Harry nodded slowly, accepting Snape's unspoken message, we need to destroy them. He thought for a long time about his choices. The ninja world, from what I can see, is very dangerous. In this village I have a leader who is in my court, that's a powerful ace I have. You will probably not enjoy such backing in any other village. I agree, for the time being, it would seem that staying in the village hidden in the leaves is safest for you, despite the many enemies you enjoy here, Snape said. Harry sighed and then resolved himself. Figure out what it will take to get rid of these enemies, Snape. And what if I cannot discover a political solution to our problem? Snape asked. I have tortured and killed in my previous life, Professor. I am prepared to do what is necessary. But I would rather not go on a killing spree if there is a better choice. Harry turned and walked out of the grove. Chapter 7. Harry rested on the roof of his apartment, lost in contemplation. The events of the past night played in his mind. With little time to react, he hadn't thought out much. In the heat of the moment, only one thing was important. He had some form of family out there and she was in trouble. The morning after brought all sorts of uncomfortable issues to light. How did he explain his apparition magic? Or how he had known she was in trouble? And, lastly, what was he supposed to do with her now? The lady realized that letting Mito Dono talk to her granddaughter was going to only make things worse. Hopefully the older woman had come up with an excuse for him. With a sigh he leapt off the roof and with a somersault landed on his patio. It was time to see his relative. Entering through the window he found Shizune-san cooking in his kitchen and the blonde woman he had saved sitting on his couch, staring at the opposite wall. Mito Dono stood in a corner, but the living women in his apartment didn't seem to know she was there. At his entrance the blonde woman looked up and caught his eye. They stared at each other wordlessly. This is even more uncomfortable than I thought it would be, Harry thought. Mito Dono walked to him to take her place by his side. My granddaughter cannot see me right now. I have spoken to her and explained that I am haunting you. Call her Tsun Ni-chan, it should break her out of her stupor and verify what I told her of you, which is that you think of her as your elder sister. Uzumaki-kun. Shizune-san called from the kitchen, frowning at the sight of her master and her host in a staring contest. Hello, Shizune-san. Sorry, I was just stunned by how beautiful my Tsun Ni-chan is. Harry gave a big smile and rubbed the back of his neck in a put-on nervous gesture. The blonde woman sputtered, Tsun. No one has called me that since I was 5. That's too bad, Ni-chan. It's such a pretty name. Did you drink the medicine I left for you? He asked, walking into his living room. He had to act like he was not unnerved by the woman tracking him with her eyes like a predator. The woman gave him a fierce smile. You have to tell me how you made it. That has to be the most incredible hangover cure I have ever had. It was like last night never happened. Yes, it was very good, Uzumaki-kun. Shizune-san bobbed her head happily. I haven't slept at all and I still feel fresh after having it. Sure, I'll share. Something smells delicious, Shizune-san. Is there some for me? Harry asked. He sat down on the low dinner table in his lounge. The blonde woman moved from her place on the couch to join him. In daylight Harry was able to see that underneath her green robes, her grey kimono hid little of her very curvaceous figure. He made sure that he kept his eyes right on her face and didn't let them wander. We thought you would be home sooner, Tsunade said, her face expressionless. Harry ducked his head as he knew Naruto did when he was embarrassed. Sorry, I'm not used to someone waiting at home for me. I was just wandering. His answer made Tsunade frown, but she didn't say anything, making the moment awkward. It was Shizune, again, who smoothed over the situation. That's alright. It gave me more time to get everything ready. It's just to thank you for last night, the brunette said with a smile, bringing out steaming dishes from the kitchen. Harry did not have to pretend to be excited. While he was not bad at cooking at all, he rarely made an effort for himself. The sight and smell of dinner cooked with care made his mouth water. Thank you so much, Shizune-san. Uzumaki Tsunade began. Eh? Harry interrupted with a scowl. Is that any way to talk to your little brother, Ni-chan? Even Shizune was giving her master a disappointed look. Tsunade huffed. Fine, Naruto. Shizune told me what you did for me last night. That was very foolish, you could have died. The edge of the table where she was resting her hand suddenly broke. She had crushed it unknowingly in anger. Harry cocked a brow and watched her for a moment. Heh, if it takes doing something foolish to put any sort of expression on that beautiful face of yours, Ni-chan, then I will be happy to do it again and again. I was beginning to think you were just a porcelain doll. He looked away from her to the soup Shizune had placed in front of him. He sighed contentedly, taking a drink of it. Tsunade-sama. Shizune prompted. Losing your life over some thugs is pointless waste. Don't tell me to sugarcoat it, Shizune, Tsunade snapped. Pointless? Harry scoffed but held his tongue to keep from saying more. A sudden fury had taken him at the way Tsunade had dismissed what he had done for her. I've never had a family, not anyone I could pretend was family either, really, so I might not know how one is supposed to act towards a relative. But, I thought taking care of your own is something all families are supposed to do. It was Tsunade's turn to scoff. She looked at him with the same blank indifferent expression she had been wearing since he had walked in. Family? Where do you get off claiming that we are family, kid? You don't even know me. Tsunade-sama. Shizune gasped in reproach. Harry felt his blood run cold at Tsunade's words, and deep disappointment and shame filled him. A decade of being alone and wanting real human connection had made his emotions raw and easy to manipulate. Naruto hadn't had Harry's experiences or strength to ignore the unkindness of others, he hadn't even had the wonderful experience of being accepted by friends the way Harry had. And all those needs had, unbeknownst to Harry, become attached to Tsunade as soon as Mito Dono had said that he had a living relative out there. But now he sat in his home being rejected by the woman who little Naruto had pinned so many of his hopes to. Harry marshaled his embarrassment and disappointment. He had hung his head and crossed his arms, protecting himself from the harsh words, but he raised his head and smiled at the cold woman. My apologies, I forgot being related by blood doesn't mean one is family. I imposed on you. Forgive me, Tsunade-san. Some indecipherable emotion crossed Tsunade's face. Harry hoped it was embarrassment. He looked to Shizune, who was much easier to read. The young woman was simply hurt. Tsunade couldn't bear him looking at her any longer, so turned away to begin eating. The sounds of cutlery were loud in the silence that followed. Harry allowed it until anger at the woman forced him to say, but I won't apologize for saving you. What? Tsunade asked. We might not be family, but we are blood. He gave her a look of fierce determination. And I will never abandon my blood, especially if you are in trouble and pain. So, no, I don't apologize for saving you, idiot son. Tsunade's eyes were wide and her mouth slightly open at the little boy's words and the emotion in them. This was the third time in less than a half hour he had stoked her emotions, making her uneasy. Finally she settled on being angry to get over her discomfort. Hey. Who the hell are you calling idiot, you little bug? Harry smirks inside, seemed like he had gotten to the woman. He couldn't say the vicious things he wanted to, but he could taunt her as Naruto would have. After all, that was the only revenge he would get, petty as it may be. Some S-class kunoichi you are. Stumbling around drunk like an idiot and then having to be saved by a little bug like me. I was so disappointed, he groused, playing with his food. You really want to die, don't you, insect? Tsunade cracked her knuckles. Harry lazily raised a brow and regarded her coolly. What are you going to do, break more of my furniture? Bah. And I heard you were the strongest kunoichi ever, what a letdown, passing out in front of bad guys. Harry didn't see Shizune move, but suddenly found himself in her lap with the woman covering him, her back turned to Tsunade. Tsunade-sama. She warned. He's still injured, you cannot hurt him, please, she begged. Harry hugged Shizune, burying his face in her shoulder. Wah. Save me from the drunk blonde demon woman, Shizune-ni-san. There, she won't hurt you. Shizune patted his head. Keep him away from me, Shizune. God, I need a drink, Tsunade sighed, her anger leaving her. I'm not making you more medicine if you get drunk again, Harry said, from his place on Shizune's lap. In answer Tsunade just glared at him. Harry looked up at Shizune's worried face. Shizune-san, why are all beautiful women so violent? Well, all except you. Shizune just blushed and grinned. Don't aggravate Tsunade-sama, Naruto-kun. Come finish your dinner. They ate in much more comfortable silence for a while before someone knocked and without invitation walked in. Harry looked up to see a line of his clones entering the apartment with angry looks on their face. What the hell, boss? Did you forget us? Oh, crap, Harry swore and palmed his face. Yeah, sorry, guys. It has been 4 days straight, boss. Number 32 finally ran out of chakra and disappeared. How much longer were we supposed to stay on the lake? Another clone shouted. Look, I said I was sorry, Harry said. Now, there's homework to be done, get to it. He went back to his meal. Oh, no, you don't. You can't ignore us for 4 days and then throw more work at us. Get him, boys. The first clone shouted and dozens of clones piled into the apartment, all trying to attack their creator. This is mutiny. Harry shouted, jumping up and holding himself to the ceiling with chakra. We want workers' rights. The clones shouted en masse. Quiet. Tsunade shouted over all of them, stopping the impromptu battle. Harry looked to see that the dinner table was upended and that food was everywhere, including on Tsunade and Shizune's clothes. Tsunade had 2 clones caught by their collars. Whoa, who's the babe, boss? A clone asked. 2 babes, man, a pretty elder sister type and a total blonde porn star type. Boss, you lucky dog. One of the clones in Tsunade's grasp whistled appreciatively. Boss, if this is the reason you forgot about us, I don't mind. I'm gonna dispel real quick, I want to see the memories of what you got up to, a third clone cackled. Tsunade threw the clones in her hands at the mass around her, popping them like balloons. Harry watched in quiet horror as she decimated 3 dozen clones with just a few hits. As memories trickled into his mind he was happy to learn that he was able to fight on water fairly well now. Oh, he said, seeing Tsunade's glare directed up at him. Guess, I will celebrate later. Luckily there was another knock on the door and some few walked in. Harry grunted seeing a bunch of more clones. Boss, keep it down, will ya? A clone said, his hands filled with a large book. We're still trying to get through all these scrolls, you know. These walls between apartments are really thin. Yeah, sure, now get out of here. Wait, has anyone noticed you taking up another room? Harry asked hurriedly, seeing that Tsunade's face was turning red with fury. Nah, boss, no one wants to live on the same floor as you. We're hanging out in all the empty ones. Well, see ya. The clones on study duty left. Shizune was just staring wide-eyed, obviously stunned by the number of clones. Tsunade had her lips in a thin line. She pointed at the floor, motioning Harry to come off the ceiling. With a sheepish smile Harry landed on the ground and immediately hid behind Shizune. I didn't do it, he said. Actually, Naruto-kun, since they were all your clones, you sort of did, Shizune said, looking at the wasted food in dismay. Naruto, Tsunade snapped. Have you been keeping clones active while you're injured? Look, I forgot, a lot has been happening, Harry said. Shizune, grab him, I want to check his wounds, Tsunade ordered. Harry resigned himself to the 2 medic nin's care as once again he was forced to lie on his stomach. And once again, Mito Dono was sitting in a corner of the room. She dropped her eyes in apology when Harry looked at her. Harry realizes that whatever Mito Dono had hoped to come out of his meeting with Tsunade did not happen. Scene break. Tsunade was awake even though the room was cast in darkness. She leaned against the sofa and watched the night sky through the window, trying to calm her turbid thoughts. She played with the idea of confessing that she met her grandmother's ghost to Shizune before dismissing it, thinking her apprentice would think she's crazy. Her thoughts were interrupted when a shadow disturbed the moonlight streaming into the lounge. She found her old sensei standing on the terrace, staring at her from under his Hokage hat of office. Even he looked like a ghost in his white robe standing still in the silent night. Tsunade sighed inside, knowing she should have expected the man to find out she was in Konoha, even though she hadn't left the apartment once. She slipped out the window to join her sensei on the patio. Sensei, she greeted and leaned against the railing. Tsunade, it's good to see you after so many years. His voice was warm. Shizune was reported going in and out of Naruto's apartment. Where is she? She and Naruto are asleep in his room, Tsunade answered quietly. The old man drew a long pipe from his robes and lit it. Tsunade smiled softly at the sweet smell of tobacco, which reminded her so much of her sensei. She also knew that the Hokage was resolving himself for the more difficult part of their conversation, just as she was. What are you doing here, Tsunade? Specifically at Naruto's home? He finally asked. Tsunade tapped her fingers on her opposite arm, wondering just how much a fool her old sensei would think she is when she gave her explanation. The truth, as she knew it, couldn't be shared exactly. Not in the least because the spirit of her grandmother had ordered her to be discreet. I had a dream of my grandmother. She spoke of Naruto as her legacy. Her legacy? Her sensei prompted. Jinchuriki legacy, Tsunade answered simply. The dream felt very real. I was disturbed by it. So you came to check up on him? The Hokage asked with a pleased smile. Tsunade could see that already the old man was thinking of ways to make the boy her responsibility and his hope that the child would draw her back to the village. She understood that was exactly what her grandmother had wanted as well. Sadly, she could not give them that satisfaction. Yes, and I realized it was foolish to let a dream affect me so much. He's an annoying brat. I was stupid to think I would see my grandmother in him. Tsunade frowned, making it clear to Sarutobi that he should give up his secret hopes. He could use a guiding hand, Tsunade, someone to look up to. You two are related, however distantly, the Hokage pressed, his own frown in place as well. I don't know how to deal with a child, sensei. Besides, I can't take him all over Fire Country with me, he has his school here, Tsunade said. If I remember right, you were very good with children. Nawaki couldn't have asked for a better elder sister, Sarutobi said, and then watched in dismay that Tsunade had stiffened in ire. Don't mention him. She snapped. The Hokage sighed deeply. We have all suffered tragedies. You must learn to live with yours, my dear child. Tsunade looked away from the man, unwilling to get into a fight that usually resulted when they spoke of the subject. Even though it had been many years since they had talked, the old arguments were still there, waiting. She changed the subject, boy has a healing talent. Oh? The Hokage followed her lead. I've heard recently that he displayed an inclination for medical justu from the head of the Inyazuka clan, Tsume. I will leave him some of my old notes. Shizune carries them around. Maybe in a few years he will be worth my time to teach, she said and turned away to go back inside. Tsunade, her sensei called and appeared in front of her. He raised his liver-spotted hands to her cheeks and then kissed her forehead, making the woman blush and her heart waver. I want to see you again before I leave this world, and if I don't, as my last wish, take care of Naruto. Hi, sensei, Tsunade whispered to herself, because the old Hokage had disappeared already. Scene break. Barry found Tsunade on the roof of his apartment in the early dawn. She had her arms crossed and a light frown on her brow as she surveyed the village. He did nothing to hide his presence as he came to stand next to her. You didn't sleep at all? He asked, enjoying the cool breeze playing on his skin. Too many memories, she said, as if to herself. Barry gave her a sidelong look and realized she really was lost in some reverie. Excuse me, he said, not wanting to intrude and stepped back. Did Tsunade said, stopping him. Thank you. Barry simply nodded even though her eyes were focused elsewhere. It was easy for him to see that whatever memories she was thinking about were bad ones. He knew the feeling, he had many himself, and he hid from even the good ones. For what's it worth, Tsunade said in the dead tone she had been speaking in that morning, I am sorry I couldn't be what you wanted. In his heart Harry felt the same, but out loud he said, don't let it bother you. You already have enough regrets. The last thing I want is to add to your burden. Finally Tsunade looked at him. Her eyes were tensed in a puzzled expression, as if she did not know what to think of him. Despite how much she had disappointed the blonde child in him, Harry found her lovely. I'm going to head to school, he said when the woman's scrutiny got uncomfortable. Tsunade nodded. We will be gone by the time you get back. I'm leaving some notes for you. When you've mastered what's in them, find me. Harry bowed deeply to show his thanks and said, I hope you find peace. Farewell. Before Tsunade could say anything he had disappeared from sight with a crack of sound. She smiled at the teleportation jutsu Shizune had mentioned. It was good to know her apprentice wasn't losing her mind. Scene break. Hinata waited after school for Naruto with a worried expression on her face. Nara Shikamaru and Aburame Shino were with her, one was lounging against a wall, while Shino stood stoically by her side. It was a month after Naruto had made friends with her, 2 weeks of sheer bliss. She had soon found herself not only friends with Naruto, but also Shikamaru and Shino. Neither of them were put off by her shyness, in fact Shikamaru seemed to like her because she was so quiet. But not all of it had been as blissful as she liked to tell her it was. Her father had called expressly forbidding her to speak to Naruto. Even Shikamaru's father had discouraged him from being friends with the blonde boy. She wondered what Shikamaru's father had meant by, it is a very bad time to be seen consorting with Uzumaki. Luckily, Shikamaru hadn't paid too much attention to his father and Hinata was outright disobeying and simply hoped her father never found out. He has been with the instructors too long, Shino commented from inside his deep hood. I know that the teachers don't like him, but I don't understand why. His grades in class are excellent and he is not as brash as he seemed last year when we were his juniors. Hinata was wringing her hands in worry. Do you think he's gotten into trouble? Shikamaru shrugged. Can't see why, he hasn't pulled a prank for a long time and he said he did well on the tests we took this week. Shino looked at his new friends. Maybe they are speaking to him about the reason your father told you to stay away from him, Shikamaru. Shikamaru grunted. What's up with the adults? I can't hang out with Shoji and Naruto at the same time because his father has forbidden him to be around Naruto too. Something is up, even my mother spoke to me yesterday and told me it was not in the clan's interest to be seen with him, Shino shared. Their words were only making Hinata more troubled. She really didn't want to lose Naruto's friendship. He was the one who gave her courage to stand up for herself. Oh no, you two won't give up on him, will you? Shikamaru-san, Shino-san. She couldn't help the trembled in her voice. I will not, Shino said. Why? Because I want to know the reason the adults want to keep us apart. Shikamaru just said, don't worry, Hinata-san. The door to the teacher's lounge opened and shut with a bang. The three child soldiers in training watched Iruka-sensei stalk out angrily. He had turned on the path that would take him directly to the Hokage Tower. Before she knew what she was doing, Hinata was running to catch up to one of her favorite teachers. Iruka-sensei. Is Naruto okay? She shouted. Iruka froze in his steps and rounded on the girl with a cloud of fury on his face. Hinata shrunk upon herself seeing true anger on the man's face. Forgive me, Hinata, I am not upset with you. It's just that Naruto has been suspended from the academy indefinitely. What? Why? Shikamaru had caught up with Hinata. He has been suspended for cheating on his assignments and the latest tests, Iruka said, his fists closed in anger. That is not true. I was sitting by Naruto during the tests, he did not cheat, Shino said. I agree, Iruka-sensei said, surprising the children. Naruto promised me that he was going to start working harder and he kept his promise, but the other instructors don't believe it. CC, can't you do something, Iruka-sensei? Hinata asked, on the verge of tears. Iruka gave a strained smile and rested a comforting hand on the slight girl's shoulder. I am going to do just that. I'm glad Naruto has found such good friends as all of you. Imino Iruka. An authoritative voice interrupted them. Standing a few feet away two Anbu had appeared, wearing black cloaks and hoods. Come with us. Iruka frowned but followed, knowing better than disobeying the Anbu. The children were left behind in varying degrees of worry. Scene break. Elsewhere two old men and an old woman sat around a traditional tea table. The table was blank as the purpose of the meeting was anything but social. The woman, Kaharu, spoke first. As loath as I was to agree to spy on the Hokage's office, you were right to advise us to. She looked to the man with half his face covered in bandages. It does not please me to be right, Danzo said. What have you found? Uzumaki has a transformation technique far advanced than the standard henge. She paused to give weight to her words. He turns into a young woman whose allure is capable of affecting even mature men. Kitsune. The second man, Hamura, swore angrily. And I am sure you have heard about what he has been up to in the academy. Danzo nodded. The sudden increase in ability, intelligence, and strength. Or simply his ability to hoodwink his instructors, Hamura corrected. No one was able to catch him at it, but there is no other explanation for the increase in knowledge and skill. The nine-tailed fox is working through the boy if it isn't already completely in control, Kaharu said with a sigh. This is too much evidence to ignore, the ability to deceive, to seduce his betters to such a level. And I have one more thing to add, Danzo said, seeing his opportunity to close the deal. My sources tell me that several times in the past week since his attack on the Hokage Tower, the boy has completely disappeared from the side of the crystal ball. There was disturbed silence at his words, which Danzo secretly enjoyed because it was proof his plan was working. To our knowledge no earthly Justu can make the Hokage's crystal ball blind. Amura shook his head slightly in disappointment. Saratobi refuses to make the difficult choice. Konoha must be protected. We have already taken steps, Danzo. Your news only solidifies that we have done what is right. Indeed, Kaharu agreed. So the boy is mine to condition? Danzo asked, already knowing the answer. As we speak he is being suspended from the academy and the Hokage's agent they're being diverted to an emergency mission outside the village, said Kaharu. Danzo smiled, knowing that the low light and shadows in the room would hide it. I will not waste the opportunity you have created. He stood without another word and left. Finally, Konoha's weapon was in his hands to mold. He paused in his stride when he stepped out of the house and pressed a finger at his throat to the communicator hidden under the collar. Initiate the plan. Failure will be rewarded with death. His rude Anbu received the order in silence and attacked. Scene break. Harry was sitting atop the Hokage monument, thinking about his latest setback when Snape's form appeared in the air. He raised his brows seeing the panicked expression on the potion master's face. Millard, Danzo has watch out. Snape shouted, impotently drawing his wand to point at Harry's assailants. Harry had jumped at Snape's warning, but it was too late. He was pierced with dozens of senbon soaked in tranquilizers. He tried desperately to fix an image of a place to apparate to, but it was like trying to catch air. His vision swam and his thoughts became sluggish. When he fell, his body was too numb to report the pain. Darkness and root took him. Chapter end. What if Naruto reincarnated as Harry Potter? End here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.